I've never like really completed it just because I've been like in and out of everything. But I loved like just the web swinging and like just the chill like vibes that gave off.
I think that you're okay to steal it.
Hello and welcome to Another Day Pixel, a podcast about games, anime, entertainment, life, everything in between. I'm your host today for episode 24. My name's Joseph, and with me today, uh, the man who always dreamed about being a magical girl, Nick. How you doing, Nick?
I told you never to tell anybody about that.
I mean, I was it you wanted to be called Mint Julep, if I remember correctly?
I can neither confirm nor deny that ever happened. Uh, so you could, anyway, that's not true. Don't believe it. But if my life was an anime, it probably would be a magical girl anime. I must concede to that. But it's not an anime, so that's not true. Yeah. So I'm doing good though, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, things are going pretty good. Yeah, been hectic lately, so I'll talk a little bit more about that. But man, no, today I had the craziest work day as far as everyone was just ordering out food, and so
Oh no, Friday.
for breakfast
That's great.
we ended up ordering, and I got this thing. I'm not sure if you guys have it by you, but I've never fucking saw it before, and it was an omelet, but it was wrapped or buried inside a thing of hash browns. So it was like an almu rice, but instead of having the rice in the middle, it was the omelet that was, so it's covered, hash browns with an omelet in the center.
Sounds pretty good.
It was
That's pretty
amazing,
cool.
actually. And for lunch, we've been talking about it for weeks now, and there's a place that does, it's a Korean joint of all places, doing corn dogs, and they have the weirdest flavors. They have like flaming Cheeto flavor. They have Doritos. They have one that is Fruity Pebbles. So I had to go with the Fruity Pebble abomination, and it was you have your choice of center core. You can either have, you can have a veggie dog in the middle. You can have a regular beef dog, pork. You can have cheddar or mozzarella, or you can have a half and half. You can have half cheddar or mozzarella, half meat or meat substitute. And so like, all right, half and half cheddar and beef. Uh, and I went with both the Fruity Pebbles, and I ended up going with the Dorito one.
Okay.
That one wasn't bad, actually. I mean, Fruity Pebbles was good. It was sugary sweet. It was like you got some sweet and savory action going on. Uh, I was a little more disappointed with it was something like there was the sweet chili Doritos, because it was like sweet chili sauce drizzled on top, and then the residue from the bottom of your Doritos bag dumped on top of it, essentially, is what it was.
Oh,
Okay.
Dorito
That's
dust.
Dorito
uh,
dust. All right. I
uh,
like Dorito dust.
one of the other guys got the flaming hot Cheetos, and he was like this with like a veggie dog substitute. Absolutely loved it. So this is really good. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, it's been a big thing of debauchery and decadence
It's
there.
been a culinary week, it sounds like. All right. Cool, man.
Yeah. All right. And to introduce the third member of our show today, our lucky guest, superhero in disguise, Mr. Robert. How are you doing?
Only a superhero at night. I am not very vocal about it though, Joe. So
Well,
thanks for
guess what?
outing me.
You got to be out there, man. Like, the Civil War is a thing. Okay.
So I did
Well,
notice that he didn't say which superhero you are. So we'll just keep it under wraps.
it's a little bit better than the magical girl though, so I'm
Hey,
okay with it.
hey, fuck you. Magical girls are okay, okay? I have powers for no reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
friendship. It's the power, you know?
Oh yeah, friendship power rules, man. Uh,
Yeah.
all right.
But
Oh, well, how about you, Nick? How's your week been going?
It's
Huh?
it's been going okay. I don't have anything amazing to report. I did I did eat pizza today, and that was delicious. But I'm actually excited to get into some of the stuff we got going. I've been playing some games, a game, and been watching some movies. So I'm just really excited to talk about that stuff. That's kind of what I've been just kind of thinking about so much. But other than that, I've had kind of a normal week, so it's kind of whatever.
Right. Well, normal's good in its own way. A little boring, but it's okay.
Sorry, I can't. Like, I'm sorry, like a meteor didn't hit my house or something. You know.
Yeah, me too, man. That'd make for
Hey,
great news.
shut
Uh, uh, all right. So, all right, we're just gonna roll right into the news right off the bat. We're gonna skip you, Robert, and then we'll drill you for questions later.
I'm
How
okay
about that? All right.
I am okay with it.
Okay.
All
Oh,
right. Well,
so
I'm gonna let Nick take it away here.
okay, yeah, sorry, I forgot that was my pickup point. All right, so we don't have too much as far as like newsy news going, but three things that I pulled up. One or two of the stories are a little bit more connected. First of all, so earlier this week, Microsoft has been being kind of questioned by Brazil about their acquisition of Activision, kind of some antitrust questioning, and Brazil or somebody was saying, was questioning like, so you guys are going to buy Activision, you guys are going to get Call of Duty. By having Call of Duty, are you Microsoft going to kind of have an unfair advantage in the marketplace? Is Call of Duty an essential game to any platform to have so that they can compete, I guess, fairly? And Microsoft was saying, no, it's not an essential game. And so the news is, we're finally getting to the news, is that Sony was like, yeah, Call of Duty is an essential game. And if Microsoft takes it off of the other platforms and makes it an Xbox exclusive, then it will make it harder for other companies to compete. That's kind of the scuttlebutt kind of going on there. So we'll kind of leave it there for now. So I guess first of all, do you guys think of Call of Duty as an essential game in so much that it would really hurt other platforms to not have it? I guess Joe, go ahead.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't think it is and it isn't, right? So, as far as what you consider essential, I think Microsoft would end up hurting themselves more financially if they just took it off the market. You want as many people to play this game, especially with the new trend of trying to make things cross-platform. If you want it on PC, you want it on your console, you want it on the other person's console, and Microsoft is still going to get all their money. They've already had published games, with each other. Like, you buy, was it the Major League game? It's like you'll buy that with
Oh, yeah.
Sony published right on it, but it's on the Xbox. So it's not unheard of to have this happen. And if Microsoft owns it, they're only going to hurt themselves by making it exclusive only to Xbox.
Yeah. Okay. So Robert, do you think the same thing, or what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. I think it's more of an essential one, just because like of how many people do play it now. Like especially since the start of what was it? Battle Royales.
Yeah.
Like it's blown up compared to like everything else.
Yeah. Call of Duty
And
Warzone.
people
Yeah.
still play it. Yeah. So it's like it's very essential at this point, just because like the Battle Royale is so essential, like part of the ecosystem now.
Yeah.
And it's weird to me. It's like I love it, but it's like it takes over such a huge part of like all games now.
Yeah. I think I kind of think I think Sony's right. I think it is somewhat of an essential game. I don't play it, but I know it does sell gangbusters. Just they just print money over there.
Yeah.
But I think Joe, I think you're right too. That Microsoft is like, who cares? You know, you play it on. I mean, they're pretty much kind of going away from their own box anyway. They're making so much money off of Game Pass. I would assume it's everybody's uh, playing on there. So they seem to be, and they're putting so much toward that it seems like they care mostly about just getting like, making money off of the games themselves. That like yeah, they're probably gonna always say, hey, it's play on PlayStation, play on Nintendo, play on whatever else comes out. We don't care. You're still paying us to play this game.
Well, with Robert, what he said before about, the battle royals, I mean, I'm pretty sure Warzone's free anyways. It's just the cosmetics, they're charging you $20 to be John McClane or stuff like that. So I mean, granted, if I played, I would have dropped the money for sure. It would have been great. But at the same time, I think since it's already like that, the battle royale space is already free to play. It's only like their specific maps and game modes. Uh, yeah, like I said, you want as many people as you can for both of those. I'm one of those weird people who I actually like Call of Duty for the story. I actually
Oh
really
yeah.
I like it because it's that cheesy summer blockbuster kind of like you watch it, you play it, and you're like, yeah, this is a great spectacle. What I wonder how they're gonna ramp this up. I don't have to think about collecting anything or doing anything stupid. I just play the game straightforward, and I don't really have to, search any corners or anything. Like, no, no, just point A to point B, murder what's in between. And if they would just sell that for like $20, like $30, I would buy that like without any multiplayer. But since they don't, and they usually take a while for their games to go on sale, if it ever, I end up just going ahead to the library, getting it for my console, and just playing the story mode. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I got my fix. Next.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Joe, you kind of answered the question that I was wondering about a little bit already. Um, but do you guys? So I guess I'll throw it over to Robert. So, Robert, do you think that assuming the Microsoft and Activision deal goes through, um, do you think that Microsoft will keep COD on all platforms after the contract runs out? Because right now they have a contract to be on all platforms for the next 3 years. So
Mm.
once that runs out, they'll have the option. But do you think that they'll actually keep it on all platforms after that?
Yeah, I think so. Just like you said, like what Joe said, they're making money like off the cosmetics. So like, why wouldn't you want to spread it across all platforms and everything?
Yeah,
Why limit yourself just to like PC and like an Xbox?
yeah.
And you can have Nintendo Switch and PS Vita. Who cares? You know?
All the way back to the Vita. They put it on PSP for all things.
Yeah.
It comes out
So
for Nintendo.
Uh, it would probably happen in Brazil of all places because like I remember they held onto the Sega way longer than any other country.
I think it was like FIFA. I'm kind of switching off of that just because it's so interesting. But I think FIFA like 16 or something. No, FIFA. I was back when I was in Japan, so it must have been like FIFA 13 was still coming out on like the PlayStation 2 or something like that because of
oh yeah.
countries like Brazil. Um, Consoles are, I think they were, and I think they might still be insanely high. They're like double, even even when times are normal and their supply is not constrained, they were like insanely expensive. So they hung on to old consoles a lot longer than like we do.
Yeah, their tax or whatever it was crazy high. I remember hearing stories about like PlayStation's 1, 2, and stuff like that being sold for well more than double, like triple to quadruple the amount that we would in the U.S. Granted, I'm not, it's their local currency. I'm not sure how the exchange rate would have panned out, but still, it's just crazy amount for their own in-house.
Yeah.
It's other countries have it way worse than we do in the States. I mean, when you look at something like Australia, Australia usually
Gosh.
ends up paying, they're like,
It's-
yeah, they're pretty bad too. Back in the day, it was almost a 2-to-1 ratio for the U.S. dollar to Australian. I mean, now it's not quite as bad, but No, I just remember it's like,
Yeah.
especially watching a bunch of reviewers talk about monitors and stuff like that, or other tech, and like, oh, dude, that sucks so bad to have to be in those countries, and like we're pretty lucky here in the States.
Yeah, I
So
remember whenever I lived in Japan, I met a guy from Australia who was visiting, and he was like, "Our country hates the internet, and I'll never understand why." Um, but he was like in IT, and he was just like he was just pissed. He was like, "Our country hates the internet, and like we can't get any of the old people to understand that like this is the future, and it just like not to be afraid of it." So count your blessings. If you live in the United States, count your blessings. They have problems, but it is definitely a lot harder in some other places. But anyway, so that was the first news story. The next news story is, as I mentioned earlier, tangentially related. So after Sony said, "Hey, COD is an essential game," and Microsoft, you can just like feel them like rolling their eyes. Um, they um, came back and accused Sony of blocking games from coming to Game Pass, um, saying that Sony pays developers to not put their games on Game Pass, uh, and yeah, so that's it's kind of a weird thing. Like to me, I mean, I'm kind of like, yeah, like that's they're certainly they're
That's
certainly
Sony.
allowed to do, like they're certainly allowed to have their own deals with third party. So like to me, it's like, yeah, Microsoft wants to buy Activision. They're gonna pony up a bunch of money, and they're gonna take a big risk. It's obviously they've got the money, and it's kind of a no brainer as far as risk goes. But they're gonna take on all this, and they should have the right to put it on whatever platform they want or don't want. The antitrust stuff does, we do like I do want to investigate that kind of thing and make sure, hey, that's all good. But then conversely, Sony to me does have the right to like say go to a developer and say, hey, we're going to pay you guys for your game, and part of our contract is going to be we want more exclusivity. Don't put your game on Game Pass because we want more people to buy PlayStations. Um, I totally get that, and I don't really see anything wrong with that either. So what do you guys think? We'll throw it over to Robert first.
So I mean, like Sony's always been like that about like PS exclusives and everything. So it's very like it's not gonna change, but I guess it slowly has been changing. They have been like branching out and not just staying like within their own ecosystem. But I do think like what you said is like also true. It's like it's up to the third like parties like if they want to accept those terms or not, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah.
So
What
all
Joe.
about you,
right, well,
Joe?
I'll step in on this. Yeah, so I think, I mean, honestly, if you're gonna, people need to make money in however way they can, right? So you go with whatever deal suits you best. So as a third party, if Sony's going to pay you to not go to their platform or to someone else's platform, that also could open the doors for a few other things, right? Maybe if you're wanting to try to be more Sony exclusive, if you want to, if you're thinking about in the future, like, hey, if we were buddies with Sony now, maybe they'll buy us in the future. Or not only are they paying you not to go to Game Pass, but maybe they'll cut you a deal to try to go onto their current services because they're trying to build up their own library as well. Uh, I'm not really too impressed with what Sony has to currently offer, so I've not. I just kept my original PlayStation Plus membership and then just let it turn when they converted it. I haven't even bothered touching it really. It's I've been kind of disappointed in it, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of leaving it as is, and I just leave it active so I can, the few games I do play with friends, I'm able to at at a moment's notice. But I also had bought in like 2 3 years in advance, so I don't have to worry about that stuff for a long while. Um, so yeah, that's just how it is in my opinion. So when it comes to someone else being like, "Hey, we're a small studio," or even semi-large, being like, "Hey, if you're going to give us extra money." for not going there. We weren't going to go there anyways, maybe. So yeah, we'll take that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do what you want. It's not like oh yeah, we're in the midst of a deal, or like I'm going to pay you money. You get off of Game Pass now. It's not necessarily that, or like bullying. And if it is, that makes for a more interesting news story. And I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I would definitely like to hear more about that if that is occurring. I don't think it is, at least not as far as the evidence shows right now. But dang it, I was gonna say a couple different things, and they are slowly slipping away from my brain. I guess first thing I'll say is that I was uh I was very enthusiastic about buying a PS5 and jonesing for one pretty hard back before God of War was released on PC. And actually, even before that, when Final Fantasy VII Remake was released on PC, I was like, I gotta get a PlayStation in order to play these games, and because like I really wanted to play them, and I didn't have like I didn't have like a up to date graphics card, so that was kind of another little part of it. But once they started putting Final Fantasy, for the most part, and then God of War, and now Spider-Man on PC, it is definitely more of a it definitely made me go, oh, I don't absolutely have to have a PlayStation because I can play some of these exclusives finally, even after a couple years. Don't get me wrong, I am very glad to have the newer, better graphics card in my PS5, and the possibility of getting the exclusive games now. Like, I freaking love that. Especially since I'm part of a video game podcast, I definitely kind of need that. Um, but the other thing I was going to say, now I remember, is they've talked about forever that uh, consoles, that they have to sell them, that they have to basically break even in order to sell these. That's why attach rate, meaning how many games do people buy, is so important, because they actually make way more money off of the software that they can sell for these consoles. So, and especially like the PS5 being, you know, what like $500, whenever they were trying to sell the PS3 for 600 12 years ago, is kind of a, or even no, dang, like what was it? It's like was it 12 or 16 years ago? Anyway, freaking back in '06, they were trying to sell that for like $6,000 or $600. Geez. So they're like, they are producing them for even less than it makes make sense to me. So they are, I guess they just have to get, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that it doesn't make sense to hold games exclusive, because you actually make more money putting the game out anywhere and everywhere, rather than forcing somebody to buy a console that you're really only going to break even on as it is anyway. So I don't know. I foresee games being put out everywhere eventually, and consoles kind of being games basically being console agnostic at some point.
Well, I think it's only relevant now because it's kind of a rough, like it's one of those, like, you're making that comment in the here and now, but you can't generalize that about the past,
Mm,
because uh consoles now more than ever they're the closest things to a PC. Beforehand,
yeah.
the tech was so proprietary and so different that uh they were truly different from each other and very different from the computer space at the time. So you could make something specifically for your unit. Uh, the original PlayStation, for example,
Yeah.
uh, the games on that really, you could have probably done a few of them on computer, uh, but for the most part, you couldn't really do them on, the 64. That's for darn sure. And so that's why things were different. And consoles, for a good chunk of the middle section, I guess, for us growing up from like Nintendo NES to current times, they would have to often sell consoles at a loss, and then they would make it up on the accessories.
Oh yeah.
That's really where they came in, because like, it doesn't cost, 40 $50 at the time for a brand new controller, because a lot of it's just hollow plastic, but
Yeah.
they were able to like recoup a lot of stuff there, and yeah, games for sure, games. But you wanted your console people, no matter what, want a fandom and they want to rally behind something. That's why
Yeah.
you get fanboys from the beginning, and yeah, that's what you. So you kind of want to hold on to that to a certain extent. Now, as far as being available on everything, I don't. I still think there's going to be Xbox exclusive games, but as far as on the console space, they'll be exclusive to Xbox itself. It won't be coming out on the Switch. And Nintendo still makes plenty of their exclusives. Most of Mario stuff is not coming out anywhere else. Because that makes it enticing only for that. Because Lord knows, almost any game that's on the Switch can pretty much be somehow made to play on almost anything else as far as graphical wise. Then you have to make the gimmick of touch or sensor or shake and emote or something like that. And that's like, oh, now this is special only for this, and therefore no one else. It will never work on your system. So stop asking us fans, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Uh,
Yeah,
and then,
they probably
yeah.
wanted to do that with like the Vita and get that like those touch kind of controls on the old controllers because like PCs, I mean, I guess PCs would end up making stuff for that, but it is like a good block because it's like, well, I mean, who's going to go out and buy, are PC people really going to go out and buy that third party thing? Is it going to work as well as it is, as it is made for this thing? And then who's going to sell it? Like Steam, is Steam really going to spend the money to get that game on their platform when it's like when you have to buy like some kind of extra thing to be able to play it? So it kind of makes sense that, yeah, like you're saying, that they want to create new tech to differentiate from a PC in order to make people buy their thing.
And the part of a console has always been the one dedicated box. You don't you didn't really have firmware updates at the time, but now you do. But at least you don't have to mess with settings. You don't have to make things optimized. It's a plug and play solution for the casual person, and that's the appeal. Is like you're going to get the best output automatically. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You don't have to worry about a stupid driver update. So that PC was always way more complicated. Now, like I said, now they're very similar. Things have become way more streamlined. So you can easily port your game to the PC space and not have that be such a bad thing. So as far as you talking about how you just got your PlayStation and how a lot of the current games are now starting to make your way over to the PC, uh, I think consoles wouldn't have mattered as much this current generation if it wasn't for the pandemic, because with the graphics card shortage all around, you want what you can't have, even if you don't necessarily need it. So, it's
Yeah.
that FOMO, the fear of missing out. And so people are like, oh, I can't get the graphics card. I can't get the console. Like, I see it there. It's there. I have to have it. Like you're going to buy it just because it's there, even though it's like, and then afterwards, you're like, oh, okay, I don't really have anyone who has, like, I have this. None of my friends do. So I'm not going to be able to play with any of them, but at least with Sony, there are a lot of first or single player experiences, which is great. And in your case, it's a great substitute for having an old graphics card in your PC, because you probably wouldn't have cared so much about the PlayStation if you got the new the 30 series graphics cards right out the gate. Because you're like, oh yeah, I have that and I don't have to worry about it. I mean, that's why I do Game Pass on my computer, and I was like, yeah, I don't need an Xbox. I eventually want to get one, uh, but at the same time, it's not burning a hole for me to do that. Also, none of my friends have it, but we all, like, a lot of us sat down and talked. We're like, all right, we all have Game Pass for the PC, um, and a lot of us have Ultimate, so that means we'll have it on the Xbox. So if we did buy a console, we would all go for the Xbox, and that's literally jumping ship because almost all of us had PlayStation 4s instead.
Wow.
So it was no loyalty there, but it was more or less of, hey, we get a lot of the day one games. We can go ahead, and that way we don't have to worry about, oh, dude, money's tight. I have, like, I don't really want to, or like, if you're super stoked about a game, I'm like, I don't want to buy a brand new game just because you want it. I'm like, I'll play it, but yeah, Game Pass made that so much nicer for everyone. So I think they being Microsoft really knew what they were doing as far as planning ahead
Hmm.
and making it more user friendly, because that is most definitely the best experience for the average gamer.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they got their
yeah,
dicks kicked in pretty hard in the PlayStation 4 era, because I know that PlayStation 4 outsold Xbox One by a big margin. And so that seems to be the case. Is the one that gets beat up in the last generation and the current generation is way more fan forward thinking. But I wanted to ask Robert, do you have Game Pass or
I don't have Game Pass. I was strictly a PS4 person, so I never like got into it. And then when I had a PC, I didn't need it because I had a PlayStation. I was like, I'm not gonna buy another Xbox. What's the point of buying an Xbox if I just have all my games on the PC already? So I was always like that. And then what he was saying, it's like it was always the war between like Sony and like Xbox.
yeah?
So it was always like, oh, you got a PS3, like, oh, I got an Xbox. And it was always for me like Xbox was a lot more the competitor, like in the sense like competitive games and more like for like a competitive league, FPS shooters and stuff like that. So like if you want to do like tournaments and stuff, that's where you'd go compared to like the PS3 or the PS4. It was more like single player games and exclusivity. So like you got Spiderman, you got Last of Us, you got a whole bunch of like console exclusives compared to like some of the other games like Xbox.
Yeah, Robert was telling me before the cast that he used to knife people who said they had an Xbox.
Oh
He's
yeah, all the time on site.
well, I
You're
mean,
wearing
fair
green,
game.
you're
I mean,
knife.
you're talking you're talking to someone who went through 7 different 360s. So,
oh
uh,
gosh,
Bringing that.
only 2 of them didn't break. Well, while I owned it. The one I sold ended up breaking like 4 years later. My buddy bought it and he's like, "Yeah, I finally kicked the bucket." But other than that, I've gone through 5 that have overheated in one form or another, and that's why when I was done with the 360, I was like, "No, I'm done." Plus, I was overseas, and the PlayStation was region free, so I was like, "All right, I can." It was a lot easier. And then during that time overseas, I ended up going to the transition of physical to digital because that just made my life a whole lot easier, not having to move, ship games, and that way I was able to just buy it easily off the U.S. store marketplace and not have to worry. So I think you're right, Robert, about having uh the Xbox at the time. Early Xbox One and 360 was very much a like a group machine. I looked at it and I played like Xbox for all my multiplayer games, whether it be couch co-op or whatnot. Because it was awesome to be able to play with a bunch of friends and Halo, Halo 3 and 4, and to be able to do that multiplayer split screen, just an amazing experience. Gears of War, and then what happened was for me, my PlayStation 3 became my fighting game, console. I just ended up just by pure happenstance, just bought all the remasters of games coming out, and that's actually Nick and I played a lot of games that way because I was never really good at fighting games. I'm still not, but having Nick and me, like I was like, dude, they just re-released the Marvel versus Capcom 2, and so I bought it, and then we would be roughly at the same level,
yeah.
and I would specifically only play it when he came by. So I wouldn't that
Made
way I
you feel
wouldn't
better.
get better than him, with because yeah, so we were really competitive. We were like, yeah, like I won this one, then he'd win, and so eventually I ended up crushing him. But
I
I
don't remember it that
specifically
Wasn't
way.
tried
right.
making it fair.
I don't
Oh
remember
yeah,
that
you
way.
just stopped playing, man. You just gave up.
You were better at Injustice than me. That was one thing that I do remember getting. I think you're better at that. Injustice. No, it might have been Injustice, but I know it was Nidhogg. You definitely were way better at Nidhogg. You won like at least 60%, maybe 75% of the time on Nidhogg. I was like, what the fuck, man? I swear you just guessed and got it right half the time. But yeah, those Marvel Capcom games, those were just they're so well made. They're just good. You can smash buttons and you can have so much fun. And I don't know, maybe I'm not doing that good, but it felt like I was doing good stuff. But
Yeah,
it,
I mean, so certain like as you know, but those games eventually some of them got delisted, and like you can't get them anymore. So I'm glad I have them on my console right now, and they all serve their purpose. One for the consoles, but now they're very similar to each other. There's it's the studios behind it that really make the game like make the magic happen, and uh, you know, the fact is, Naughty Dog, making like The Last of Us, that's a phenomenal game that is on. I'm glad it's on, like it's coming out to the PC and stuff like that because it deserves to. Uh, Other people, like, some people just don't want to own a console. They're like, I spent all my money on this killer PC rig. Why would I waste my money on anything else, especially when it's a subpar experience? And you can't argue with that. You're like, no, for sure. But at the same time, some other people are just like, I literally can't afford that barrier to entry for all the ray tracing, glory,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to spend. Why would I spend $1,000+ on this, on a 4K monitor that's only like 27 inches or some crap? When I can just for that same money, I can get a 50 something inch TV, you know.
Yeah,
So
you do need. I mean, this kind of thing is, you can have all the graphics or whatever you want, but you really have to have a TV that can support that, and that is, I mean, 4K TVs are cheaper now than they've ever been, but not all of them do much more than just add more pixels. A lot. There's plenty that don't have very good color. They don't have good blacks or depths, or
Contrast. Yeah.
contrast, stuff like that. Yeah.
a lot of people don't care. That is the honest to God answer to that. I mean, gamers, like hardcore gamers will care, and those who are who like us who are just nerds, yes, we want, like we look at the black levels, but the average person is like, man, I really hate the fact that that isn't true black because I'm looking at an LCD, not an OLED, and therefore it's, I'm like, no, they're like, okay, yeah, screen turn black next. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's kind of my point though, is like a lot of people don't care. And if they do start to look at like ray tracing and graphics cards, they're like, and then they start to look, well, is this going to matter on my TV? And then it's like, no, it doesn't work on it. Well, frick that. I'm not going to buy a $1,500 graphics card and a $1,500 TV, $2,000 TV in order to make it work. It's just like that's like way more money than I feel like spending on this hobby or whatever. So yeah, you're right. It does kind of I think people's eyes glaze over once they start seeing the numbers and how things have to match up. It's only us super nerds that really get into that. But there was actually another story that I remembered that I kind of wanted to bring up because I thought it was kind of interesting. Um, uh, Colin Moriarty's podcast, Sacred Symbols, they apparently got a hold of a real script for the next Tomb Raider game, um,
Ooh.
and they. I listened to a podcast kind of talking about sort of the aftermath of this, but basically what they did on their first cast is they acted out parts of the script in a comical way with one of the guys. I think his name's Chris. No, it's not Chris Reagan. It's I forget the guy's name, but like one of the guys giving like a fake Cockney accent, just kind of making it funny and stuff. Well, Square Enix did not like this at all, and so what they did is they talked to Patreon, who is kind of the funding that Colin Moriarty's Sacred Symbols podcast is, or Colin's Last Stand, how they get their money, and they told Patreon, hey, make them take it down, or we'll file a DMCA or whatever. And so Patreon was like, hey, please take it down. And Colin Moriarty ended up taking the video off of YouTube. But the audio podcast is still up, because Square only requested or only demanded like the YouTube or something being taken down, or maybe it's just no. I think it's just off of Patreon. Anyway, there's a very fine line for what they had to taken down, and Colin Moriarty made sure to take that and only that down. So it's kind of a weird thing, but I was kind of wondering, based on what I've said so far, like, do you guys think that Colin's in the right? I guess that there's a lot of questions. Apparently, he's saying that he did receive this. He didn't steal it. He did get it from somebody else, and as far as he knows, it's not like it wasn't stolen or gotten by any kind of ill-gotten means. I don't really know how he knows that, but he is asserting that it was received not illegally. And so I was kind of wondering what you guys think about like him getting this and the situation as I've described it, or if you have any questions.
I'll let Robert go first on this one.
Okay, so like I think he should have all creative, like what is it, creative rights, since he did a parody of it, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he made a comedic, I
I
guess,
mean,
out of it instead of just.
It was a verbatim reading. It was a verbatim reading, but it was
verbatim.
But it was so that is where I'm kind of like, okay. I mean, there are a couple different things that I'd play here, but that is one of the things where it is a verbatim reading. It's done in a comical way, but that doesn't really matter. It's still a verbatim reading. So as far as the copyright on that point is concerned, that is a little bit of a flag to me, but I'll let you continue now that you know that.
Oh yeah, like I know, yeah. So that's a huge flag for me now that I know that he did a verbatim reading. It'd be different if he makes like one or like a couple words. You know, it's just like plagiarism in like college. You know, you have to make something up.
Yeah.
But I understand him taking off it from the YouTube just because like YouTube's really strict with the DMAs, like the DMA strikes, whatever.
DMCA,
And they've been taking DMC, right?
DMCA.
DMCA strikes. And I know like a lot of YouTubers and everything have been getting in trouble because of that, and like they've been getting their stuff demonetized just because like, oh, they played one sound, not even the whole like lyrics or anything, playing just like a sound snippet of anything. So it's like I understand like why they take it off immediately from then.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah. What do you think?
All right, so for myself, leaving out what I think of Colin as a person in general,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see eye to eye with a lot of the way he does things, but as far as this instance, whether whomever, like if you just replace him with anyone else, all right, I think it's wrong in a lot of ways. I think it's just a cheap ploy to get it's that shock value. It's like kind of like the paparazzi photo kind of deal. Like we're doing this to get the clicks, to get the likes, what you do. But I think you're throwing away some of your morals, I guess, in order to get people to you're baiting them to look at your stuff. You're taking I don't know how you would get this as it's for something that's not out yet, right? So let's just say if it was a movie script, we know the new movies, this whatever new movies coming out, new Star Wars, and we somehow get this, and we're like, we didn't steal it, and I know that you're saying that that the person on the other end who's giving it to you, they didn't steal it either. They don't work for it. They must have been from their uncle for Nintendo or some crap, so you're trying to say this is legit. This is the real thing, but we got it in all perfectly fine normal means, even though we weren't given to him by the company directly. And now we're just gonna literally mock and like make fun of this in our own way, and like we're gonna take a serious what they consider a serious piece of work, and we're just gonna shit all over it. And and
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm glad you guys worked really hard for that. Oh yeah, you guys I know you guys are gonna have to be finishing up this game in, I don't know, a year. Oh, now you can't because you have to rewrite the script because some jerks just decided to make fun of it and blow it out to the world. Um, yeah, granted, leaks happen all the time. You can send that. You can post the leak. You're like, yeah, hey, they did that with the new Mario movie. There was a big chunk of, or at least how the bullet points of how the beats were supposed to go, and like that sucks. That really does mess with people's livelihoods there. And yeah, the people who posted it do get a lot of traffic going through there. So like, yeah, they got traffic. They're getting a lot of money, and at the same time, you're kind of like selling out your integrity on stuff. Now,
Right.
if it was an important matter, that's one thing, but it's just like literally, this is just entertainment. And uh, I feel that my respect for whomever does that kind of drops just because you're literally taking someone's hard work and you're just like kind of flushing it just for a quick click.
Right. Right. I definitely see kind of that stuff, and you know, I did sort of roll my eyes because I listened to Colin Moriarty. I don't normally, but I did listen to this. I didn't listen to the actual thing of them talking about the Tomb Raider because I don't give a shit about that. But I did listen to him talk with. It wasn't his legal counsel, but it was a friend of his who was a lawyer, and another person that works at the company he has, and they kind of discussed sort of the ramifications and what and why Square did what they did, toward Patreon instead of anything else. Um, I did roll my eyes a little bit when I was like, when he was like, we got it, and we didn't think there was anything wrong with doing this. I was like, okay, yeah, you've worked at IGN, you've been in video games for way too long for anybody to believe that coming out of your mouth. Um, or that at least, I mean, maybe you thought it was fine, but you had to know that somebody at Square was going to get pissed about this. Whether right or wrong, you had to know they were going to fight back against something like this. So that is a point where I kind of rolled my eyes, but he did make a point that I forget which game it was, but a few years ago, it might have been the Call of Duty. I don't know why I think that, but a few years ago, IGN got a hold of a big chunk of a game and they just put it all out there. And they were like, we're reporters, we got a hold of it by legal means. We didn't steal it at least or whatever. And when they put it all out there, and it was like, well, there's nothing you can do about it. And so they weren't sued, but they're a big company, and they can fight with lawyers against another big company. Colin's Last Stand is a small company, and they can't afford to fight, a years long legal battle, and that's why Square Enix can come in and command Patreon to do what they do. So if it is like Colin kind of says, they're not reporters, but they are doing reporting when they leak something like that. I think that giving it a funny reading is a cowardly way to report it. I think that if you're going to get something like that and you're going to leak and you're going to put it out there, you need to say, hey, we got this. Here's the reading of it. This is it. Rather than trying to hide behind some kind of a playful reading. But I mean, it is the other part that I am kind of dubious about is like, so you got this and it was somebody got this by probably not legal means. Then again, if somebody left it on a desk or whatever, which does happen, or on a subway, then it's like, well, I picked it up, and this is what it was. That's not illegal. So if it was by legal means, then I would say it's reporting, and it's okay, and somebody just fucked up. But that would be something that I would be very curious to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it though, but when you're comparing to IGN, they posted the thing. They didn't make a mockery of it. They weren't joking around with it. There's like, here is the facts. It's like when you see something else leaked on the internet and then you just literally repost it. this was found on, such and such website. This is the means in which we at least currently know of how this was out there. It was found on a thumb drive in medieval times or some crap like that. Um,
Yeah.
something, like, yeah, you end up doing.
I
There you.
forgot about
I liked how that the gears clicked there for
Oh
you.
gosh.
Uh,
You gotta,
okay.
Robert, you gotta look that up at some point. Thumb drive at medieval times, but we'll go on.
Are
All
you
right.
sure? Like that's okay to look up?
Well, I mean,
It's a fun story. It's
yeah.
a stupid
Okay.
story, but it's fun
Sorry.
enough.
Sorry for throwing you off,
So
Joe. Go ahead.
yeah, but that's the thing is, so you're right. If that information was just discovered and then they reprinted it and they're like, hey, here's what it is, and if you were to do a dry read, I think it'd be pretty boring. Granted, but I'm like, honestly, just post it, let it be sit there. But you want that video, you need the clicks, you need the ad revenue, and that's why you do the funny read. But like I said, then it's automatically dumping on people's work that people took seriously. I mean, it's just you're going out of your way to not only spoil something, but then you're actually going out of your way to ruin something, um, just because you don't like it, and because or you just it's there's I don't know, just there's better ways to do it, and I would expect it. Expect better from someone who's seasoned in the industry.
Yeah.
But once again, they're not reporters and they're free to do what they want. It's yeah, they are, but there you could be tactful. I mean, uh, there is a reason why he is where he is now, and he makes his own business, and he needs to look. He's looking out just for himself and whatever means he needs, and that's how most people would end up doing, I guess, in some form or another. But by the end of the day, if it was me, at most, I would, maybe do a dry read, but honestly, I probably wouldn't even do that. I'd just be like, here it is. Here's the posting. Here's what it is. You guys can read it. But I know other companies or other people have done, dry reads and be like, hey, warning. If you do not want to hear how this thing is spoiled or the alleged rumors of how this is, then skip ahead, and we're just going to read it, and then we're going to get our impressions on it, and then that's fine. And you're like, wow, I didn't expect this or that. If that's really how it goes, yes. But just to, like I said, I guess that's just making fun of it is what really threw me off.
Yeah. So, two things. The first is that like yeah, that's probably where the problem, I guess, to me is too is um you know don't maybe mock it so much. I mean, I guess you can you can do whatever you want, but it just kind of it's kind of a bad look, I think. But he did say on his podcast that he has gotten news before, and he's handed it off to to reporters to do something with because he didn't know what to do with it or want to do anything with it. And so my question here is like, why why this time? This does kind of feel like something that fits right in that category. Is like he's got plenty of contacts with all kinds of news organizations. Why not this time hand it off? And maybe request a credit or something like that, but let somebody handle it. So that's kind of a curious thing to me. But the other thing is that I don't know if you guys remember this, but years ago, before Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the third Tomb Raider came out, some dude was working on it on his PC or on his laptop on like a train or subway or something, and somebody behind him took a snapshot with their phone of him working on the screen, and had like it had the name, and it had like I guess he was like a graphic designer or whatever, because it had like the name and like a temporary cutout of the colors that they were going to be using. It had a temporary title screen essentially of what they were going to be working, and that's how the name Shadow of the Tomb Raider got leaked. Not the end of the world, definitely not as bad as like a script getting leaked, but that's the Tomb Raider again getting leaked with this script. So I'm kind of like, hey, fooled me once, it's one thing, but you guys have fucked up now twice on games back to back. Whoever is working on, what is it, THQ Nordic, whatever developers over there, you guys have fucked up twice on leaks. That's a pattern to me.
That you're putting too much blame right there. Once again, we don't know how this one came out. We don't know if it was a disgruntled employee, and having
That's
someone,
true.
having bad protocol of working in public, that is just different. Like, hey, if you're working at a coffee shop, some dude walks behind, sees your shit, um, or it's like, yeah, or like someone steals your laptop. It's like, and you're like, oh, that's on them. Yes and no. I mean, granted, the guy, he was minding his own business, working, and then someone took a over the shoulder screenshot. Yeah, it could have been better, but it
I
wasn't a lot of leak. But this whole script thing, there's no way to know how this come out, at least not right now. And it
I,
could be a disgruntled employee who fucking got canned, who's like, yeah, I'm a temp or something. I'm contracted, and then I'm hoping to go full time, and then they cut me, so I'm angry, and
I
luckily I made copies of stuff
I
before I
mean,
left, and here you go.
you're
You know,
right. Like we don't know the circumstances, at least of the second one. My only thing is that I look at is this is two breaches right in a row on two consecutive games, and I have to look at that as like, okay, that that sounds out of the ordinary compared to other developers that I see. So I mean, you're right. I have to concede we don't know the circumstances of this, but to me, I just have to look at that going like, okay, where there seems to be some consistency here, and I would be curious as to know what's going on there. But anyway, Robert, if you do you have anything else to say about this before I jump on to the next?
No, I'm just gonna say like yeah, I do see how like on your side it's like oh like yeah like it is like a leak and it does two in a row. I think the main thing is I don't think it was supposed to be this big. If it was like a purposeful like leak, if anything, I'm pretty sure it would have been like another like title screen or another like little character animation compared to like a whole like script.
Yeah, that does
And
sound
I do feel
malicious.
bad now that I like hearing more of y'all. Like my initial impression was just like, oh, like it's just a little something. But then like more I listened to Joe about how it's
It is hurting
I
the.
guess damaging for the workers and everything. I was like, oh yeah, that's a little more hurtful than I
uh,
thought initially.
yeah, and also just a quick, it's Eidos Montreal who made like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and it's published by Square Enix.
Mm.
So I just wanted to make sure we didn't throw THQ under the bus when it wasn't them. Uh,
Yeah, I guess
just
it was.
quick correction right there.
I mean, is it
But
the same
I'll
developer? I guess we don't know yet, but or I don't know if it's possible to
um,
know.
I actually don't know anything about this new one coming out. I just know that the last three were published by Square, and that's why like each one like, oh yeah, they sold really well, didn't meet our expectations. I'm like, well, maybe you should resettle your expectations and quit throwing money at Kingdom Hearts for the last decade, because they came out with all three games with before Kingdom Hearts 3, between 2 and 3. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you gotta. I mean, it's like maybe they don't meet targets or whatever, but like they're making games and they're putting them out. And Kingdom Hearts, gosh, Kingdom Hearts is a nightmare. Uh, but yeah, anyway, yeah. So that's. I would be curious to know if it's the same developer, because that seems to be maybe where something's going on. But I know it did. It has changed hands, right? It has changed from Square on those first three to THQ Nordic onto the new one, as far as I know. But yeah, so that was those kind of the main three things. I just happened to remember that. I thought that was pretty interesting. But the fourth thing was in the news is that Unity won a contract with the U.S. Department of Defense to run through. I forget the exact wording, but basically, they are helping the U.S. Department of Defense with their virtual trainings and things like that, combat trainings, I guess. It doesn't really say too much, but apparently some of the workers at Unity are not too terribly happy about their technology being used in terms of defense or warfare. So that's kind of something that's going on. It doesn't seem like it's a big kerfluffle, but I thought that was interesting. I didn't know. I know that Department of Defense contracts out with like Raytheon and Halliburton and stuff like that, but I kind of figured that they had all their stuff, in-house, and that those kind of companies that were doing that stuff had their own virtual. I was sure like there's got to be virtual stuff going on, but I figured it was all in-house with those kind of companies. I didn't really realize that they would go with a company like Unity to enhance those things. But it makes sense. They're already in the business, trying to make that stuff as realistic as possible. So it makes sense that the government would be like, "Hey, you guys are making it realistic. Let's make some cheddar here."
Yeah, all I can
Maybe.
ever think is War Games, the old
Oh yeah,
Matthew Broderick movie. Like, you want to play a game, So, way to merge the two, and yeah, it's no, I don't think any game developer wants their stuff to be used for nefarious purposes in potential, or or to harm other people. I mean,
yeah.
uh, reminds me of how PS3s were banned to be shipped to the Middle East for a while because they could be the processors could be used for guidance systems back in the day.
Yeah, I know they were kind of reviewed the possibility of a PlayStation 2 being able to launch a nuclear missile. I don't know. I don't know if that ever came out as possible, but the government did look at that as a possibility, which was kind of news. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like your game developer, or a developer for Unity, and you're like, I want to go and make stuff that will make games better, and then you kind of find out that it could be used by the government to kill a lot of people, right or wrong. You're probably going to go like, hey, I didn't sign up to work with that. I thought that was all, people who wanted to do that kind of stuff. I don't really want that really on my hands. That's why I don't really think about it like that. But yeah, that is something that as a worker, I'd be like, I don't know if I really wanted my work to be done in that way.
I don't know how I feel about that. Just because like all the games that have been coming out and all like everything, like Unity was I think like a big part of was it Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
I'm like, even if it's like is like just making more realistic and everything, it's only like they're gonna find a way. If not through like Unity, they're gonna go to like Unreal Engine 5, Unreal Engine 4, whatever, It's I think it doesn't the workers shouldn't be as I don't want to say sensitive, but like I don't really think it matters like so much to them, I think, in my head. Like cause they've made all these war games, they made all these shooting games and everything. Like they participate whether they like think of it or not in my head.
Okay.
The thing is, Unity, the concept behind Unity is it's a like simple platforms for the everyday man kind of concept, where like you can plug and play your thing here. It's like, so it makes it easier for anybody to write code or to do something, and it's more interchangeable as opposed to for example, each game studio coming up with their own engine, and then you have your contractors come on. You have to teach them how to use your new engine, and then once they're done using it, you either keep them or they move on. But this is like, oh, you already know how to use this base platform. We're all using this base platform. You're already 80% there to be able to do what you need to with us. So it literally, depending on what kind of systems you're working on, like, oh yeah, I'll just use missiles in this case. Like, yeah, it's like, oh, you know how to use Unity. You're already like the basis of Unity. You already know, like, you're 3 steps closer to a missile guidance system than you were before.
Mm,
And so it's like, it's making it simple for everyone, opposed to having to need, as in theory, in the specialty. Once again, I don't know how exactly they're going to be implementing this, but the fact that you mentioned Unreal 5, I was going to make the joke of, well, that's how all the government's going to be using Unreal 5 for deep fakes anyways, because
Yeah.
I mean, they're already using it in all your backgrounds to all your Hollywood stuff, and like from
yeah.
The Mandalorian to The Matrix. So yeah, we're already doomed, is what it comes down to.
Yes, we're doomed. You heard it here, not first, but you did hear it here. Yeah. So anyway, that's but you're. I mean, yeah, you have a point. To me, it is like if I was working at Unity, I would be like, hey, I didn't sign up for that. Exactly. I signed up for
Mhm.
for doing this other stuff, but now that I know, I mean, if you're a worker there, I guess you kind of have to ask yourself, now that I know that what I'm making could potentially be used to ultimately take someone's life, I have to question that and maybe consider working somewhere else. So it's a question, I think, that is good to be asked, but you're not too far off base, because like, well, what else did you think this stuff could be used for? It's not going to stick on a screen. I mean, you're talking about, like, I mean, I've seen, I've watched documentaries where they show guys in tanks, and what they're looking at as they're firing. It's like, this is a video game, man. Like, it's
Yeah.
you got a screen, it's night vision, and you're doing this and then pulling a trigger. It's exactly the same as a game. Obviously, there's more rumble whenever somebody shoots it back at you, but it is still there. Anyway, so this news section. I'm actually surprised. There's actually quite a bit of good news topics this time, but it is getting a little long in the truth. So I think that's going to wrap it up for news for us this week.
All right. Well, we have here. If you guys, do you want to take a break now, or are you good to go?
I'm good.
We're good. We're good. All right. So this is where we'll get into some of the things we've been playing, and I'll kick this off. So recently, some I think I might have mentioned this before, though. My kid's daycare has one of the guys who runs it. He's a big nerd as well, and so we get along. And he happened to have one of these arcade one-up countercades. You know, those little countertop arcade units. Uh,
Mhm.
it's like an 8-inch screen, and he happened to have before the pandemic, he had a couple Raspberry Pis, so he popped one in, kid friendly, like games on it, so for like PG and below, so no Mortal Kombat on these ones, more like Tetris and some other stuff. And I just remember my kid walked in, saw it, never saw an arcade before, a machine, runs right up to it, grabs that joystick, starts clacking on the buttons, and I'm like, all right, I guess he is my kid. And I'm
That's how
like,
you
all
know.
right, I now have to get one of these. It's just like, all right. And so I've been keeping my eye on for like the last, quite a few months now. Uh, and the countercades are usually like 230 MSRP normal, and they'll jump on sale. They'll drop to like uh 179. So I'm like, all right, that's not bad. And I've almost pulled the trigger a couple times, just waiting. And just recently, the Marvel superheroes cabinet dropped to 130, and I was like, all
Yeah.
right, it's $100, cheaper. I got to get this thing. And yeah, so I went ahead and I picked it up. It's a nice little machine. Has like the I was actually surprised the marquee lights up on the top. It's a loop. It's has 4 games right on it, and it comes with. So this kind of loops back to the games that Nick and I would play together on my the PS3. So it has the Marvel superheroes. I think it's like uh, Gemini Wars or something like that. But it's literally Thanos and the power gems. Uh, you have Marvel or the X-Men versus Street Fighter, which is always a classic. You had the Punisher game, which most people don't know exists. It is a side-scrolling beat 'em up, 2 player. You play as the Punisher, and player 2 is Nick Fury, and you're
Okay.
beating up the Kingpin's goons. It's literally just a side-scrolling beat 'em up. It's really fun. I remember playing this game when I was 10 years old. I happened to go visit some family in Korea, and there was this little tiny uh like candy shop around the corner, and they had these 2 little arcade games. Literally, when I say little, I mean the unit top of the unit is maybe like 3 feet tall at the highest. So they had these little tiny stools. You literally sat at the stool, and you just played this little arcade game. It's pretty much the size of the countercade, but with an old CRT. And the price to play games back then was 100 won, which was roughly 10 cents US. So my father was like, "Yeah, here, man, boom!" He just drops a bunch of coins, like, "Have at it." So I remember playing the crap out of the game in front of this little, kids candy store. Um, Actually, if you have ever, I think it's there's a Netflix cartoon or anime, and I'm trying to remember the name of it's like Hit Girl or something like that, or it's essentially a boy growing up in Japan in the like early 90s in the arcade scene, talking about like a final fight and stuff like that. And him is there's this girl that he plays with who that just decimates him all the time. But they show these kind of small arcade units too, and I'm like, that's such a nostalgia factor for me. So when I saw the Punisher there, I'm like, yeah, sure thing, got to have that. And then the last game is Marvel versus Capcom, which is one of the best games out there. Granted, kind of wish Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was on there, but oh well, it is what it is. I will take what I can get. And uh I got it just the other day, literally, yeah, like yesterday.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my wife and I ended up playing. We played a handful of each fighting game, and then we pretty much before it got too late, we made it almost to the end of Punisher, and we're like, yeah, we'll finish this another time. But yeah, it was pretty good. And you're supposed to be able, from what I've seen, you can do some soft mods to it where you just you can download firmware onto the unit and essentially from a thumbstick because there's a USB port. Go ahead and you're supposed to be able to essentially sideload a bunch of games onto it, so you don't actually have to do any
That's pretty
hardware
cool.
such. Yeah. I'm actually really curious about opening up the back end and seeing how the monitor works,
Mm,
because if there's a way to somehow if there's an HDMI spot or if I could split the signal, I would
uh,
actually I would really like to be able to hook up my NES and SNES Classic, because the cables are really short, right? So
yeah.
that 8-inch screen is perfect to be right up on something, and that way I can also like have my like it could be essentially my son's arcade machine, and then it's small enough for me to put up out of his reach, being like, nope, you don't get game time right now, but when the time does come, pull it down, sit down, play together, kind of, and that's kind of my goal for this little unit. Uh, and I'm just going to straight up steal the idea that the guy at my daycare had, and he swapped out all the buttons for player one, all blue, buttons with
Mm.
the LED rings around the actual buttons, so it makes it look so much more pretty. Uh,
That's cool.
and then
Sounds amazing.
player two is all red. So I'm like, yeah, that's actually really dope. I really want to do that. So I've already been looking at buttons to buy and stuff like that. Um,
That's really cool.
so
You were telling me about this last weekend, and I was really surprised that you already got it. That you had gotten it in. Yeah, I'd love to have one of these. I'm not sure where I'd put it though, but I'd figure out a way. But yeah, I think you got the right one. You showed me a Mortal Kombat one as well. That seemed pretty cool. But 200 something is a little bit pricey, but saying it did drop down to 130 is pretty nice. And it seems like it's a good conversation piece, if nothing else, when people come over.
Yeah, I've also they also the daycare also recommended like, hey, check out Facebook Marketplace, because what people will do is when places like your Walmart or whatever, they'll put these things on clearance. And so instead of being for the big arcade units, instead of being like anywhere from $400 to $600, you end up picking them up for like $200 for a full like tall like stand up unit. And some of those things are like they picked up the Simpsons 4-player unit. Plus, it has Simpsons bowling in it, so it actually has the trackball in the center. And they picked that up for like $200, which currently goes for like 4 to 6 right now on Amazon. So I'm like, all right, that's a good thing to keep an eye out for. But the problem is when you get a big boy unit, like one is cool. You can probably manage one, but if you have more than one, you're like, crap, I'm running out of space real quick. So
Yeah.
that's why I like this countertop thing, because the countertop thing I can literally put on a shelf, like throw it on the top bookshelf. And I know my kid won't get to it, and it'll be safe. But like as a reward, or like, hey, it's a crappy day outside. That's kind of how I was raised, was like, hey, no Nintendo necessarily. You can't rent games, but if it's raining, you obviously can't play outside. So that's when we would go to our local video store, or like back when 7-Elevens and stuff would actually rent NES cartridges. And so yeah, I'd go there, and that was my chance. I was like, oh, I get to rent a Nintendo game. Which one do I want? All right, and we're back. All right, so we had a little technical difficulties with some camera work here. No big deal. Robert got a different setup to work now, so. But yeah, I pretty much had said my piece about the little arcade one-up countertop, countercade. It's if you can get it for cheap, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and yeah. So Robert, what have you been playing?
So I've been on the fence about playing a lot of games just because a lot of games have been coming up. So there was two main games that I was really like looking forward, and that was Spider-Man coming out, and that was it's called The Cult of Lamb, and that's a new it was a rogue-like dungeon crawler. So basically, you're like a lamb, sheep, whatever you want to call it, and you have to make yourself a cult, and you save like other sheep, other animals throughout the dungeon, and you just build your following.
Okay. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it released on I think all platforms. I want to say I know for Nintendo Switch and PC for sure.
Okay,
I
I've seen the screenshot to this, and I didn't really think twice about it because it reminded me of a Binding of Isaac kind of
yeah,
almost. Yeah. Oh, okay.
it's
Published by Devolver Digital, so that's right
Okay.
up their
That
alley.
makes sense.
Uh,
yeah. So it's super fun. Like there was a demo for it. Like you can try it and everything. It was funny, cute, and like also like very intense. So I haven't played too much of it, but I've been on the fence about getting Spider-Man. So I know it's remastered, and I know that it's like it looks beautiful on the PC version compared to the PS4 version. But thing was with me is like I don't know if I feel like shelling out $60 for a $20 game right now.
Yeah.
Because
So
like for the PS4, you could get it for like $20, like the Game of the Year edition, the same edition that's re-released on the Steam. So it's like I don't know. What do y'all think about it?
yeah, I mean that's actually I was actually going to ask you like well so first of all, I think that Spider-Man, what is it? Did it just come out like today?
Today?
August 13th. Um oh, is it? Is it Friday the 13th? Wow, I didn't even realize that. Um so yeah, it just came out today
Like,
for the PC, and yeah, that is kind of a big ask. You know, you're I mean, you're gonna be playing it because you got like a 3070, so that is gonna
mhm.
be a much better graphically, a much better situation graphically. But it is like how I mean, is it $40 better? Probably not. Um, so that is kind of a question to me. But you said you did. I think you were telling me earlier you did play a little bit of it back when it came out, right?
Yeah. So I played it. I've got it like two. I bought it like two or three separate times. So I borrowed it from my friend the first time. I bought it for myself the second time, and I bought it for my nephew the third time.
Okay.
So I've never like really completed it just because I've been like in and out of everything. But I loved like just the web swinging and like just the chill like vibes that gave off.
I think that you're okay to steal it. Now that you've bought it already 3 times and given it to two other people, that to me is I think you've evangelized enough for it. But yeah, I mean, like to me, it wouldn't be worth it. If I, you know, I mean, I have a PS5, so I guess I can play it for that $20
Mm.
version. That's the way that I would do it. I think Joe's probably gonna say something about going to your library and renting it. Um, but
I actually bought a console for it. So I really wanted the game. I was like salivating for it, and then I was like, yeah, I was thinking about checking out the library. But that's when they came out with the Slim PS4, and it came bundled
Mm.
with it. So that was, and it was around the holiday season. So I went ahead and picked up that version because I already had the Pro, and I picked up the Slim so that way my wife could have a console. And that's it came with the game. So like, okay, technically the Slim console is already on sale, and it
Yeah.
comes with a brand new game that was still at the time $50. So that and it kind of justified, the extra. Like, all right, so you're actually only paying, you're paying even less for the actual console itself, and then from there on, we would buy any digital game we would share. So we can, I just buy one copy, or if Sony, whatever they give for free digitally, we'd be able to play together. So it's more than made up for it. But as far as the game goes, I absolutely love Spider-Man, the Marvel Spider-Man game. I platinum both that and the Miles Morales,
Oh,
extra. Yeah, I collected all the things, did all the things. It was awesome. I played all the DLC for the base game. Um, DLC went some places that I wasn't expecting. They were fun, and it was short. It was just long enough to make it worth it. And it was really interesting because I passed the game on because that was since I had a physical disc that actually came with the Slim. I gave it to a buddy of mine, and between my spouse, myself, my buddy, we all played it completely different because they have enough gadgets, enough combat system. I
yeah,
hardly ever used any gadgets like at all. I used the super move where like you spin around and you just web everyone, and other than that, I didn't use any of the tech.
yeah.
And my buddy was all tech all the time. He's like, "No, man, he's like, I suck at the combo system." I'm like, "I'm just using all my extra gadgets." I'm like, "Really? Okay." My wife was a little bit in between, and it was just interesting to see how we played and how we each experienced it differently.
That is really
So
good.
yeah,
Like it's really good when a game can be played, viably in multiple different ways because it's like, well, you're just good at you're kind of good at those kind of games as it is. I've noticed. So the gadgets are like, well, I'm not going to do that if I already know how to do this other stuff. But it's really great that your friend was able to play basically like play a different style of game from what you did, and then your wife is able to kind of make both of those things work because that's also another bad thing when it's like, well, you can go one path or the other, but if you can merge the paths and play it together, that's really a third kind of game. So that is pretty cool.
yeah, they had a really good accessibility options for this game as well. The first time I played it completely like quote unquote stock or pure. Like I did all the quick time events and everything like that. Then when I did the DLC, I'm like, okay, I am done because there's these small little crimes that happen, and it's only one of like 6 different, like, car chase scenes or, like, events, and so you know exactly what's gonna happen. Like, you smash the one button, car flips over, or, like, you jump to the door, you're ripping the door off, so you're smashing another button, and it's just like, I just feel like I'm destroying my controller, just completely going to town on it. So, there's an option where you can just, either press and hold or straight up skip some of the other quick time events. I'm like, "You know what? I'm fine with that." I'm not missing anything else by doing that. So like a lot of the mashing buttons, you just press and hold, you're good to go. And if you really don't like quick time events, and you don't want to see the same cutscene for some of the boss fights or something like that, you can go ahead and skip that. So that having that option is, I think, really a nice feature. And honestly, the game's really good as far as just from top to bottom, visuals, storytelling. You think it's going to be a normal Spider-Man game, and then it turns out it's not. It is way more quote unquote adult, I guess. It's more mature in that sense. A lot of people were angry with the character models being changed from uh, the original base game to when the Miles Morales came out. They switched up the model to look more like a younger Peter Parker,
Mm.
because Tom Holland was the hotness. So
Uh,
if you look it up, you can actually see the character model differences.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, he's not much. He's Peter Parker isn't in the Miles standalone for very long. I don't remember if they retroactively updated the base game to have the younger model either, but I did remember looking at it and being like, "Oh, that sucks." I don't care the fact that it looks like Tom Holland, but it's just this is a very much a like a mid-20s Peter Parker, not fresh out of high school Peter Parker. He has gone through relationship troubles.
yeah.
Life has beat him down. Um, and I felt that it was like, he had more of a weathered look to him and a more mature look. So for them to have swapped out the models, I remember that being a slight disappointing factor. Um, so yeah, but if you're curious about it, go ahead and see the side by side comparisons. But here, this brought up a big argument between my buddy and I of when is it okay or like to change the difficulty in a game? And do you get the same amount of value out of said game? Um, so generally speaking, if you're powering through a game, I think it's okay to drop it down to easy. But I do think it takes away depending on the game, I think it'll take away the achievement you get personally, the fulfillment of beating said game. Because if you've ever turned a game and cranked it to the most difficult, like a game you like, and just cranked it as hard as you can, and be like, "Yeah, I didn't just beat the game; I conquered that game. It is, it is under my heel." Um, but my buddy always drops almost all these games down to the most bare bones easy difficulty. Um, and I'm like, well, at that point, you're kind of robbing yourself from the challenge of the bosses. You're not really, you're getting the story, but if you want the story, that's it's almost like you might as well watch a video at a certain point. I mean, like I said, if there's a difference between physical capability and because if certain things physically, some people just can't handle, or like
It's too hard to get
poor,
good
yeah, too
enough.
hard.
Right.
You're not quick
Carpal
enough
tunnel,
reactions.
arthritis.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
everyone has their own. There's different circumstances for everyone. I knew people who couldn't play Portal because they understood how to do the puzzle. They just physically could not, shoot, jump through the hole, shoot and shoot. Like they could not get that sequence down. They knew how to do it. They just physically weren't fast enough. And so they're like, "Yep, I never finished Portal," and I'm like, "That's a shame. That really is."
Yeah.
But so when it comes to something like that, but no, my buddy's more than capable. Just chooses to, but then I'm like, well, you're experiencing it a little different. I tried, and they no, I get the full fledged experience, full fledged. And then this is my argument, like, no, you don't. So I'm curious, you both here. What do you think about if it's like I said, if it's a single boss, that's different. But like through the whole game, just because are you getting the same experience?
I'll let Robert go first.
No, I don't believe you are. Just because it's like if you don't get that same satisfaction as like, oh, like I was grinding and grinding and grinding all the way until me dying like 50 times, me taking a break, me, like taking a day off from it just to like build yourself back up and build that like ego back up. Be like, oh, I got it this time. I got it this time. And it's like finally beating it compared to like just like, oh, me dial back to settings to easy so I can just like breeze through it and then just go back to normal doing like the easier stuff. It's like I don't get
Right.
the same satisfaction.
Yeah, I think that you're right. To a large degree. I think difficulty in games is very much an art, and that's kind of why publishers like FromSoft don't fuck with it. It's like there's no difficulty setting. This is the game, and
It is what it is,
and
right?
we made it because I mean it's sort of ableist, but like we made it so that a person with two hands and all their fingers, with a cognitive IQ level of a certain amount. I mean, they probably don't think about it exactly like that, but the IQ of a normal person can do this, and that's that. I think there's definitely a place for games like that in the world.
Okay, I'm gonna just cut you off right there. From FrontSoft, I think it's more like your IQ is low enough for you to decide to, or your kink is enough to get yourself to be beaten into the submission and to come back for more, salivating. Because
So
it's one of those things that I don't think it's well. If you have to blame it on to say IQ, I'm like, oh, that's a little harsh, dude.
I mean,
I mean, you have to learn the patterns, yes, but
look. I'm not saying that
We're
like
not kink shaming it,
I'm
guys.
not. I'm not saying that like you have to be like a genius or something. What I'm saying is like there's a level at which a person, and it's very low. I mean, you probably have to have like a way below average IQ to have significant difficulty with souls. But there is a level at which it's like, hey, you must be up to here. They don't think about it. I don't think they think about it that way, but they're just like, okay, an average person can can do this. I have massive problems with Sekiro. I think Sekiro is. I think that it's too far. I think it's too far in that direction by one or two steps, maybe a little bit more. Because getting into that game, and I played for like 10 hours, and couldn't get damn near anywhere. And it's just irritating. It's just like that. That's kind of neither here nor there. I think it is. I think it is an art. I think there's a place for games like the Souls games, FromSoft games, to exist. But I do think there also needs to be games where it's like, man, I'm just trying to fucking forget what I'm doing and just barely exist as a human being while I play this
Call of
thing.
Duty.
So, say what?
I'm like Call of Duty.
Yeah, exactly. So
All right. Well, on that note, though, I'm sorry. I'll let you go first, but I'll come back to Call of Duty in a second.
as far as like changing difficulty settings goes, like only you are gonna know when the time is to do that. There are some games, even like I don't know too much about a lot of games as far as this goes, but I do know about Nier Automata. Nier Automata has a easy, normal, hard, and very hard. So the very hard setting is one hit and you die, and that sucks. That sucks, but it sucks mostly because the opening sequence is so long that you can't like continuously try to hit it. It's not designed to be played on very hard. So there's not even that many speedrunners and stuff of the game because it's just irritating. Even on normal hard, you really can't take, or even on hard, you can't take that many hits, and this opening sequence is so long that I've heard people who have beaten it on hard say, look, get through the early part on easy or normal. Once you get to a save point, and then turn it up to hard or whatever, and beat it from there, because it's just irritating. There's nothing gained by playing it on hard, very hard from the very beginning. So there's some nuance there, but to me, my final point on this is, look, are you having fun? And by the end of the game, are you gonna hate this thing? And if the answer is yes, I'm gonna hate this thing by playing it on such a hard difficulty, then put your ego away and lower the difficulty and get through it. Because if you're not gonna finish it, or you're gonna hate yourself or hate this game, that by playing it on whatever difficulty you think you need to, that's not going to be good for anybody. So it's definitely to me, it's definitely like you have to assess for yourself, and what value do you get out of it, and you have to set the difficulty there.
Yeah. All right, so real quick, the Call of Duty, you have it, more or less as doable, but their hardest difficulty, there was always trophies attached to that, which always made it. I used to play I still never got the Mile High Club trophy for the original Modern Warfare. That was we so close so many times and just never could succeed. So I mean, but that was a fun, angering experience. But it was something that I brought upon myself. The game didn't default to that, and the way I look at slash defend a FromSoft game and their choice of being a certain difficulty is I will compare it to like just old Nintendo games. Mega Man. Like it's doable for most people. I played it as a small child. That game was just like bonkers hard. But that's because I also couldn't quite get jumping right or timings right.
They're
I can make my
very
way through the
specific.
games. I can make my way to bosses, but then to beat successful, multiple bosses, I didn't realize the rock paper scissors mentality of that game. So it's one of those things that as you grew up, you're like, oh, this isn't as hard as it was. It's still difficult, but it has a challenge, but it also has it has a certain level to it. You're supposed to learn how to to play this. As a small child, you just don't know that. You're just like, oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and play this, and I'm gonna hate it. Like certain levels, certain games, like Ninja Turtles 1. the underwater level, everyone despises it. Coming
Yeah.
back, you're like, oh, that's actually not that bad at all. But my brain, everyone died at that spot, so everyone's like, no, that's notoriously bad. Um,
Yeah.
but when it comes to the Spider-Man game, or like in this case, I think all developers should who have difficulty settings. I want them to say, especially if they have more than 3, like low, medium, hard, whatever they think is the way it should be played. I want it to say that because sometimes they'll do that. They'll say
Yeah,
like,
that is a
um,
good point.
yeah, they'll say like the second to the lowest. That is the way we think it should be played because I want to they develop a game around a certain level of difficulty because a good game will teach you how to play it. It'll add more mechanics. It'll integrate it in such a way that you're learning it naturally. You shouldn't have to go through a tutorial every darn time you get a new weapon, a new thing. It should just, and you should be able to integrate that with your move set. And when you're done, you should be able to freely move and choose your way of playing. So I think if you have a hard time on certain levels, certain scenes, or if it's just like if you're crunched for time, I've done that with games. I'm like, this game, I don't really, I'm interested in it, but I just don't have a whole. I have literally a weekend to play it before I have to. Because when I worked at GameStop or something, I was like, it releases on Monday. We have a couple days. Let's play this thing now before it comes out. Yeah, then we just power through it on like easy and like, okay, I know the story. I got enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
I did not need to do that.
Yeah.
So uh, but at the same time, to say you got the if you're capable of doing it, but you're just like, nah, I just played it on easy because I just didn't really want to try that hard, which is what my friend does. Mm, they're a bad person for it. Yes, they listen to this as well. So yes, you're a bad person. Um,
Okay, good. Glad we got that out there.
all right, now they got that dirty laundry out. They no, that's the thing is, it's I do think it is a different experience. But also I think it's you know there's a small difference between an audiobook and a regular book reading a book. But in
Mm.
the end, I can still say I read a book even though I went through the audio. But did I really get the same amount? No, because now I hear someone else's voice in my head. You know.
It is a different
Yeah.
experience.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna be like, and no one. I'm not gonna correct people. Be like, oh, did you read that book or did you listen to that book? If someone said I read that book, I'm like, you got the same meaning out of it. It's fine. And
Mhm.
especially, so I'm not gonna be an ass about that.
You did still experience it. I mean, it's not, it doesn't invalidate it. And that is one of the problems that does arise is people start to invalidate other people's experience because they didn't play it on very hard or whatever. They played it on easy. There's probably something they can't contribute to the conversation in the same way, but it is still completing the game in a parameter that the game allows for.
Mhm.
I did hear a developer, I forget who it was, but I did hear a developer say that they didn't really like difficulty settings because, at least on the type of games that they made, because they found that it was difficult to uh, add meaning to that. Like they said, well, with difficulty settings, you can, there's not a lot that you can really change to make a significant difference easily. You can add more enemies or less enemies. You can make bullets a little bit stronger or whatever. But as far as making it a separate, valuable experience, he was like, there's not a whole lot to really do. So we don't. So at their studio, they were like, I don't think they were doing any difficulty settings. They were only just doing the game is what it is. But they might have had like one like lower setting or something like that. So I thought that was interesting whenever I heard it.
Robert, you might be interested in the fact that Digital Foundry just released a video yesterday, and they're going to be from the sounds of it, they're going to be releasing quite a few videos for the comparisons of the new Spider-Man. But yeah, they did a graphic breakdown between the PS5 and current and slash mid-level PCs, like
Oh,
high end slash mid level, and then they have a preference settings. So they're like, yeah, if you have like if you have a current graphics card that has 10 or more gigs VRAM, then you can go ahead and crank it up, crank it up high. But if you have a little less, you might want to tone things down to a certain overall setting. But then they also go through the individual things like shaders or reflections and stuff like that. And they're like, all right, well, here's the big differences we noticed between these. And for like anti-aliasing, like if you bump it to a certain extent, here's the percentage difference for CPU usage and frame. You're dropping so many frames, so it's like it's not worth going necessarily to the high end because you can get instead of you can go drop it one down, save performance, and get almost the exact same visuals. You won't really notice the difference. So
Yeah.
yeah, they break it down
That's
really
pretty cool.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a half-hour video. It sounds like they're gonna be coming some more comparisons, but for a quick breakdown and being like, hey, what's the best settings right away, and just some information of trying to get that way you don't have to necessarily feel for yourself, and I would totally give that a shot.
That's cool.
All
Thanks,
right.
Joe.
Anything else left to say about Spider-Man? No.
No, I'm just excited to play it. I've been waiting for it for like I think since it was first announced, so I'm hyped for it, even though I do gotta shell out another $60, but so it goes.
Yeah, I like I said, I would love to play it again. It's especially on my computer with the because I played it on the PS4, so I would like to see it in all its ray trace
Mm.
glory. Um, all right. Well, then we're gonna jump over to you, Nick. I know you have a big one to talk about here.
Yeah. All right. It's time, guys. It's time. So 2 weeks ago, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came out for the Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing that as much as I can, more or less, which isn't all that much. I put in 22 hours, so it's a good bit. Um, this game is how long to beat has it at 54 hours on average for just beating like the main story. I think in my playthrough, I will probably not end up beating it until probably 60 or more hours, because I have kind of explored some of the areas and stuff like that, taking a little bit more time. I know we're just talking about difficulty a lot. I am playing this game on hard. I'll talk more about that later, but basically there's easy, medium, and hard. It starts you out, or it says when the game begins, it offers medium to you. But I was like, fuck it, and I was like, I'll just go for hard and just see how that goes. It does say you can lower the difficulty, change the difficulty anytime you want during the game. I have not done that yet, but that it is good to have that as an option. So this, if you're not really in the know about this, this is a JRPG, Japanese role-playing game, in the style of the old of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, as far as I understand, and kind of things like that. So, really quick premise of the story, without giving spoilers away. You play as a group of 6 soldiers that are genetically or something engineered to live only 10 years, or 10 cycles as they call it. Several of whom, especially sort of the main character, like of the 6, sort of the main 2, are very close to the end of their life cycle. The girl, I think, has like a few months to go. The guy has like a year or less to go. So 3 of the faction of 3 of these characters are from one faction called Kevis, and the other 3 are from another faction called Agnes. You start by playing as the Kevis faction, and then you end up meeting the Agnes faction. So these 2 sides, Kevis and Agnes, are at war, and a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, but you do combine. So there isn't there's an adversarial relationship as the 3 on 3 kind of meet, and then they have to work together. But you probably could have guessed that from the cover of the game. That all kind of comes to a head in about the first 10 hours, 7 hours maybe. So, kind of getting into the review of this game. The story is not bad so far. The main characters are good. The NPCs are pretty stiff and kind of silly. But the special NPCs, the ones they put forward as like, okay, these are the people that are more part of the story. Those are good. There's been 2 main ones so far that I've encountered. and they are good. It looks like there's going to be like 20 though, so just kind of judging by some of the things I can see in the menus, it looks like there's going to be a lot. Um, but those are good and are interesting. The bad guys I can't take seriously. They're the weakest part so far. They're just kind of silly to me. I don't think they're supposed to be that way, but they're just sort of. I'm not. Maybe they're saving the real good bad guys for later. So we'll see what happens there. Graphically, it's not horrible, though at 1080p on a large screen, it does struggle compared to anything that I would see on a modern PS5, type console or on a good computer. It is running on the Switch. The load times are few and far between, but they are pretty long, probably like 45 seconds to a minute long when you do occasionally have to load in. Playing handheld, it does work pretty well. It looks great, playing handheld, but it does there are problems with the size of the screen when the camera is pulled back on some of the battle sequences, and getting timings down for some of the attacks is a little bit difficult. Style of the game is good. It's somewhat similar to other games in the genre. It doesn't really lose out here, but also doesn't really do anything spectacular so far. Something I've seen, I can't really point out any examples of it other than Pokemon, but a lot of Japanese games, or some Japanese games I've seen that are modern, kind of go into like some silly territory stylistically that I don't jive with. This game, though, is avoiding that. Like I said, it's not doing anything totally amazing, but it's definitely not crapping the bed here either. Music. Okay. So I didn't really know this before I started playing, but the music for this game was done by Yasunori Mitsuda, who is one of my favorite composers as far as games go. He did Chrono Trigger back in the day. He also did Chrono Cross, and I didn't realize this, but he has done all of the Xeno games, Xenogears, Xenosaga, and Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3. The music here is very good. If it is a bit subdued compared to what I typically like, it's pretty light on recognizable melodies, which seems to be the style these days, though it does get better in this way, or it does this better than most other soundtracks. I've kind of come to learn that as a music person, I like a strong, recognizable melody that I can latch onto, an earworm, I guess, for lack of a better term. But the music's good, and I'm enjoying it. He definitely does avoid the misstep that he had back in Chrono Cross, where the battle theme is an atrocity. It is not that way. The battle theme is kind of repetitive. At least the start of it is, but it is very good to listen to, and you are fighting a lot in this game. Okay, so now we get to the piece de resistance of this game, as far as I see it. The gameplay, principally the battle system for this game, is pretty amazing, I must say. It took about 15 to 18 hours. Obviously, I'm playing on hard, but it took about 15 to 18 hours to finally get to the last pillar of this battle system. So I'll try to explain as best I can. It is a real-time action system where each character has a small set of moves based on timing. There's an auto attack that activates when you are close enough to an enemy. You can hit one of the main right side buttons to do a more powerful special move if you time it right to the... Well, you can do that at any point. But if you time it right to the end of the auto attack, then it will do bonus damage. So that's like the top left side and bottom buttons will do that, and they are on their own timers depending on what's because you can set different attacks to them. But the A button, the very right side button, is a special move that let's see, the A button is an ultimate that must be earned by performing the other moves correctly. So you can it's a thing you can build up. So you don't have to do them all perfectly in a sequence, but as the battle continues, you'll have more chances, and you can build up that ultimate, and then finally hit that whenever you charge it up enough. So, for example, one might say it is a move that must be done to this. Okay, sorry. Let me screw back a little bit. So, with all these moves, they have like let's say your B button at the bottom. It'll say this is what it does, and then underneath it in smaller print it'll say it'll have enemy side and then an arrow pointing. And what that means for that particular move is you need to position yourself to the side of the enemy before, and then use that move, and then that will make the ultimate charge a little bit. So the more that you do that, follow that direction, the more it will charge the ultimate. If you don't do that, it'll still do damage, but it won't put a charge toward the ultimate. And so the game actually is telling you at all times where you are in position of the enemy, because sometimes it'll be a flying enemy, it'll be flying above you. You can't see where the enemy even is, but the arrow will tell you, hey, you might even be under it, but the arrow will tell you, hey, we are considering you left, right, front, back of this enemy. So the information there is really good. Okay. So then going forward from that, they do open up the directional buttons on the left side to also do power moves. These can be played together with the corresponding right side button if timed right. So like X and top directional button, you can hold R, and then once both of those buttons are charged up, you can press those together, and it will do a different, more specialer move. So that's a thing that does create like more complexity to it. So then there's another special move, another special thing that you can earn, where pairs of characters will combine into what they're calling Ouroboros, which I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a British thing. I haven't tried to go look it up because I don't want to spoil anything for myself.
It's a serpent that eats its own tail, so it's the circle of a serpent biting itself.
They did kind of say something sort of about that. I don't know how that pertains to what's going on here, but the Ouroboros are, to kind of describe them, they're kind of energy kaiju in the shape of a humanoid that two players combine, or two characters combine into one. And then with that, you can do pretty good damage. You're slow, but you can do pretty good damage while in this form, and it has different moves. Though this does like reach an overheat meter, and then times out, and you go back to the two characters like fighting. So the one thing that I kind of forgot to write down here that I want to mention is that's really cool, is that in the battle you can switch characters like lickety split. They don't show you this early on, but after they teach you a couple things, they start opening it up, and so like you're like, I'm bored with this character's moves, I'm gonna go to this character. I don't need that, I'm gonna go this. So they break it down into different roles, different classes. You've got attackers, defenders, and healers, or basically attack, defense, support. And even in those break down into separate things as well. But so any character can be any class, and they rank up in that class. Very cool. So you're constantly though not too much, but regularly changing classes, and you're always switching characters in battle as much as you want to. You can kind of let it auto play, which is kind of cool as in its own right. Then there is also a chain attack sequence within a battle. This is one of the later pillars. So you can earn this where, okay, so there's a chain attack sequence that you can earn where you get to make a coordinated set of attacks on an enemy. The game goes into a special mode that is turn-based for only your characters. So basically, you go into special mode, and then your 6 characters, or whoever is still standing, gets to just shit on the enemy with special chain moves. So each move is worth a percentage, and once you go over 100%, the round is over. You usually get only 3 rounds unless you do things right in order to exceed that 100%. So they'll tell you, like, this character will do like 15%, this character will do like 45%. So you can pretty easily see, like, well, if I do a 45 and a 30 and a 15, my math sucks, but then I should be pretty close to 100, but then I can blow it out with another 30% and exceed that, and then it'll go, oh, you did a bonus, and it'll throw you it'll throw you a character back, and it'll extend your time, and then it scores you at the end of this round, at the end of this chain attack round, on how much damage you did. So you can so it's like another little mini game that you get to play there. So anyway, so I don't have too much more to say on this. I know I'm kind of talking a lot about it, but I do want to get a lot of it out there. So rating, as far as I'm concerned, the rating for this game, so the story has a potential to be pretty good, but I doubt that it will be great. It is kind of asking some interesting questions. Some of the voice acting is okay, or is good, but as far as like the writing and stuff, it is just like a little bit like, it's kind of written for a young teenager. To me, it's like, it's a kind of a YA novel, in that sense, to me, a little bit. So I don't know how good it's really going to be in that sense. The battle system alone makes this game really good. I hadn't played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or 2. Those, I'm told, are very good games. I don't know how good they are in terms of the battle system, but damn, the battle system in this game is very good. I will say that this game is a master class in tutorial design. I wish other games would do this. Starting out this game, I was like, so this is all you do? But they give you, they open up the game and they go, do this, hit one button. Okay, this is the timing for this one button. Okay. And as soon as I was like, I'm getting a little bit bored with this, they were on to the next thing. Here's another button. Here's what it does. They have taken their sweet time to slowly introduce all of their systems one on top of another, never overwhelming you. I did take my time and read everything that they showed me, but they never overwhelm, and they give you plenty of time to practice and stuff like that. So just as far as tutorial design, I really got to say that they did an amazing job with this, as far as I can tell so far. So finally, score, out of 10. This, to me, is at least as an 8 out of 10 if you don't hate JRPGs. If you're somebody who hates JRPGs, then there's nothing really that I can say that's going to make this game is not going to fix that for you. But if you're okay with JRPGs, I would find it really hard for someone to score this game less than an 8. It is so, and I was just telling you about the battle system, but there's like a collecting and a cooking system that are not annoying, that you don't like, that are not overwhelming, and then there's all kinds of, and then there's the system of of equipment and stuff is pretty simple and rudimentary. So I kind of see why they brought that back down, because the battle system is already so complicated. But they do have different gems and stuff that you can add. And you are dealing with 6 characters, and classes and stuff with their own special moves. So there is a lot of complexity there. but it's not so much that it's too crazy. One final note: playing on hard to me seems to be the right difficulty. I haven't played on an easier difficulty, but to me, everything would be too easy if I didn't play on hard. That's just the way that it seems, because hard just seems like I'm like, okay, I'm like being gated at the right places. I'm having to grind through some enemies, but not too much. However, I do seem to need to be higher level than most of the enemies that I fight, or else I tend to lose or come very close to losing. The game seems to have a system for fighting higher level enemies. There's different items that say, hey, if you're fighting a higher level enemy, you get a boost at this or a boost in that. And I'm like, well, whoop-de-doo, I still can't beat them. So I maybe I'm not good enough at actually the timing of the game, but it's so that there might be something that I'm missing there. If somebody plays this, I would love to hear about that. But anyway, so anyway, there's something there that I might be missing out. All right, so that is pretty much my review of playing 20 hours of this game so far. It is very good. All right, I'm done talking.
All right. Now that Robert's eyes are done glazing over,
Just a little bit.
Okay.
all right.
I did not do
You seem to really like it. I'm sorry, Robert. Go for it.
Oh no, like it's just me personally. Like I've never got into JRPGs just because it was still the voice acting for me. It's the same thing with anime. Like I just couldn't get into it that way. Like I know like the cutscenes and stuff like that are like a pretty big, not a big part, but like a good enough chunk to where I was like, let me wait on those.
Yeah, I will say that the British that the main 6 characters are all British. They're all a British cast, which I thought was an interesting choice. Some of the other, I know the bad guys have American accents, so I don't know what the fuck is going on there. What they're trying to say about the rebellion of the colonies or whatever. But the main characters are British. I'm trying to think of some of the other NPCs. I think some of the other NPCs are American accented, but with the British accents, you know, they're doing a pretty good job. They're not amazing, but they're definitely not losing out too much there. And some of them are pretty enjoyable. But yeah, that's another note on that.
All right, I gotta ask you, Nick. So, which one's your waifu?
There is an NPC named Ethel, and she is top waifu right now.
All right.
Go ahead.
For the record, Nick just stated that a less than 10-year-old is his waifu.
Oh,
Okay, just want to let you know they all die at age 10. So
she's definitely an adult. I'll say that.
Directly to jail.
Oh my
Straight
gosh.
to jail.
Oh no.
Do not pass go.
Straight to jail.
What has anime done to you?
Well,
I mean,
I know, it's weird. They do grow very fast. I will say that. So I'm gonna have to cut all this though.
Yeah, just
all right. Podcast over. Anyway, so yeah, but it's the characters are good. Anyway, next question.
Well, you just further incriminated yourself. You know, just they grow up fast.
Yeah, I quit. All right.
it's like, you know, I swear she's older than she looked. No, that's not how that goes.
They jailbaited me.
All right, so I set you up for failure on that one. But yeah, I know that I remember Xenoblade Chronicles 2 when that came out. That actually got a lot of hate for character design, because it was just all about the jiggle physics in that one, and there was some U.S. Some people were angry with the U.S. censorship because they're like, oh, they showed bare skin, and now now the female characters are wearing leggings, or they altered the chest size for the American audience to tone it down, and it just seemed like, as far as the art direction goes, it was kind of all over the place in the wrong direction. And so from what I've heard, they've corrected that ship, and now it's a bit better as far as the aesthetics go. I've not heard a bad thing about this game currently, so you know, it seems really neat. It seems like you don't really need to know the previous games to actually enjoy this. I personally just don't have the time for it. I would
Yeah.
say don't be afraid of JRPGs. If you're ever curious, I mean, if you want, play some of the old, like Super Nintendo ones. Like he mentioned, the music that was done by the same composer did Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is one of my all-time favorites. Um, it has great music, has great story. It's a fun, twisted mess of a timeline, and yeah, it's something worth checking out. You can if you uh have to, you can get it on an emulator, but there's a few different ways to get it legally. They have it on your phone, but I'm not sure how the quality is on that.
Yeah.
Um, but no, for sure, give it. Like I said, try some of the old RPGs, JRPGs a try.
I I
Uh,
have some. It's just it's on my Steam backlog. It's miles
oh yeah,
long, and
hmm
I
so
mean, like yeah, I mean, you kind of can't really go back to that time in some ways. I would say go with
it's how
one.
much time do you have in your life to actually grind on something?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking
I mean,
about.
Spider-Man's coming out, so not too much.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about like 70 hours to really get through, Final Fantasy 7, in a meaningful way. But I would say that if you are gonna do some of those old RPGs, to go with ones that are too old to be voice acted. Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross is one of my favorites. But I would go with that because at least there's no voice acting, so you can you can read it and it's on your own. And I would say just play, whatever, the pixel art be damned. Just play whatever you can. Just if you feel like playing it, then you're not going to notice how bad the pixel art is because you never played the old one. But I would say they're worth playing just kind of as a historical thing. And I know me and Joe grew up, we cut our teeth on hardcore JRPGs. So we're always going to recommend it. But yeah,
So, what Final Fantasy would you recommend me? I've never played any Final Fantasy game,
okay, look, I mean,
unfortunately. So I know that's a pretty
6.
big deal.
Go with 6.
yeah,
It
I
was
mean,
6.
6 is, I mean, Joe, you've played 6?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I've never played 6. 6 came a little bit before I really got into games. So I played 7, 8, and 9. 6 is on my list. I actually have it, let's say I have it ready to go in certain means. That is the true way to play it as far as I can play it now. But for me, 6 is, as I always hear, is great, but I can't truly recommend it because I have not actually played it. I would say that for my recommendations, as far as Final Fantasies go, you can't go wrong with 7, and to me, you can't go wrong with 9. There's a lot of people that don't like 9, but there's a lot of us that really do like 9. I would say
9 is whimsical, but it's not a real deep story. And
yeah,
that's why I say 6. I say 6 has an excellent story, and they've just recently remastered, if not all of them. They're in the process of remastering all the old ones with the pixel remastered versions. Um, and then because they're on the PC, you can go ahead and some of the font was like title screens were different, so you can go ahead and download the mods to change the font to the OG font. So because there's people were angry about that. But honestly, it's some of the best way to experience those games because now they've just recently been redone. Because the ports have been all over the place. I own them. I own quite a few of them on Super Nintendo. I own all of them when they were re-released to the PS1, and I have it there, but those load times are atrocious between battles and everything. It's not the way to experience those games. I bought them again when they came, certain ones when they came out on cartridge for Game Boy Advance. So I've owned these things way too many times. But like I said, since you're a PC guy, the Pixel remasters are coming out for their OG Final Fantasy series. That's the way to experience them. A lot of people like 5. Uh, 6 was so pivotal for me, and then there's so many influences from 6 I think that fall into 7. 7 was my first really
oh
solid
man,
Final Fantasy.
yeah.
I chose that PlayStation over 64, and that was the line in the sand I drew. I'm like, this is my life
Oh
now.
wow.
So I'm now, I went from Nintendo, like I'm like, nope, I am now a PlayStation person, but between that and Gran Turismo, that was my like a good year of my life. Or Gran Turismo 2 actually. So no,
I would say that I mean, kind of countering your point, Joe. I would say that the reason I think that you should play 9 first is because I think that you're less likely to like it after you play the others. It is more whimsical, as Joe said. It is also shorter. I think you can drive through that in about 40 hours. I know it's like that seems like a lot, but like Final Fantasy VII is pretty well 50 or 60 hours. But I beat FF9 as a kid in about 40 or so hours. So I know that you can get through it a little bit quicker. And I think it's really good just in general. But I think that one is the one that you're maybe least likely to like after you play some of the others. 8, I have big problems with. I think there's a massive amount of potential and a lot of it was wasted. I think it's still a great game, but I would say leave 8 for if you decide you really like that stuff. But anyway, sorry. So yeah, we kind of got off topic there, but yeah, Xenoblade. Oh, the other thing I was going to say about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is that I've enjoyed playing it more on a TV, so not handheld. Some of the cutscenes, especially toward the beginning, are rather long, and it's much better to watch those on a TV than to be hunched over a handheld. So I would recommend, if you're going to play for the most part, especially if you're going into a heavy story sequence, play on the TV and then just kind of battle around or whatever handheld until you kind of get to where you've got to play a boss, because you want to have a big screen for that as well.
all right. Well, now we're gonna move on from what we've been playing to what we've been watching and reading. So, actually, Robert, I'm gonna let you, let us know what you've been, watching and or reading.
So I am planning to get a tattoo, and my tattoo is hopefully gonna do with what I've been reading. So like one of the first like mangas and manhwas I've been reading were Solo Leveling and Tales of Demons and Gods, I believe, and that was a big thing for me. So I mean,
So
good.
tell us about Solo Leveling. I mean, because
Oh,
yeah, it's I'm not sure how many people know about it. If I remember correctly, this is a memoir, so like being
mhm.
it's a manga, but it's a Korean manga. So
Yeah. So basically, it's set in another world. It's Earth still, but like they have dungeons, and basically it's like, oh, they rank their hunters and like demons and everything between A, B, C. You know the gist of like dungeon hunters and dungeon crawling and everything. So it's kind of like that. The twist is the main character is like the weakest, and his trying to survive and everything, and then he enters a dungeon, and then he's just on his road to like getting stronger and better and everything. So that's kind of like the gist of it, and it gets a little deeper, but I don't want to like give too many spoilers about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's like great. It looks okay in the beginning, and then it slowly like progresses into like something like beautiful. Like if you've ever read like some of the One Punch like mangas, how it's like very like plain, and then the
yeah.
intense fight scenes like happen, and like it all of a sudden it has like the huge background, and like it looks beautiful and everything. That's kind of like where it's at
All
Okay.
right,
a
that's
lot
cool.
of the time. So yeah,
All
it's beautiful.
All right, and then I'm sorry, what was the other one you were reading?
Another one, well, it's not really. I guess it's a manhwa. It's more of like a Chinese like type though. It's more about cultivation. He's now trying to raise up to the like, next level, and like through meditation and like absorbing like energies through the world and stuff like that. So that one's pretty. That one was the first one I've ever read, and that's what got me into the manhwa
All right.
and got me into like reading light novels and everything, because it's like 600 chapters long, and it's
Dang.
crazy, and it's So unfortunately, like it's been on hiatus for like 2 years, and everyone's like upset because they're like, "Oh, he might not finish it," and it's like, "Oh, we don't know."
I mean, I will say that, like, with the whole Berserk debacle, I would say, like, if it were me making a manga, obviously I'd start out like, oh, well, whatever, if anybody reads it. But once it got popular and I had a plan to like go for the distance, and was putting like one chapter out every 6 months or something like they started to do. To me, it's like you gotta, and if you're getting into your 50s, it's like you've got to write down what's going to happen, and and you have to give it to a lawyer and have him put it in a safe and say, hey, this is like legally, you need to like put this away, but you got to will it to somebody. That's how I feel about like the stories that I would write, because I'd want them to be out there whether or not I was alive. And it just sucks. It's like, dude, like I just hope that anybody that's putting their stuff on hiatus, write a draft something and give it to a protective agency, because if you pass away, you do want some form of that to get out. But anyway, that's
pull a Terry Pratchett, like have it willed that your hard drive gets crushed by a steamroller, and make sure no asshole out there takes your product and then makes their fanfic twist on it, because that is not the way you intended it. If you happen to kick it, well, so be it.
But
a lot of people
that's
were
my
mad at
thing.
him.
That's my thing.
Like
go ahead, Robert.
Go ahead. Oh, I was saying like a lot of people were mad at him because the last chapter that came out was like titled like space and time, and like the thing was like he went into like a space time chamber to like train for like 1,000 years, and that's where it's cut off. Basically, that's where it went on pause.
So yeah, I mean,
And
like,
then they'll just that's brilliant, because after all this time, he'll just come out, and then they'll just skip that training montage,
yeah.
and then they'll be like, all right, I'm done now, I'm beefy. So what's up?
So my point with
All right.
with you, Joe, though, is that like it's like they're gonna make it anyway. Like with Berserk, they're making it anyway. I mean, I guess if you have a good contract, and it's like they can't touch it. But like with Berserk, they're making it anyway. They're gonna fanfic all over it, and there's nothing that he can do about it. But at least if you have like, hey, this is my will and testament, and this is how I want it written, then that comes and that comes out after I die, then the company can still do whatever they want if they own it, but but in reality they won't. They'll have to do what you say, because the fans will already know that like what's out there, and you'll have to abide by that, or else they'll storm the gates.
Yeah, but everyone knows, for example, Game of Thrones is never going to end, and so those who still care about it will just have to cry in there, at night. But it's just, it is what it is. I mean, you're allowed to do with what, it's your property. Do with what you want. I mean, if you want to have someone, if you have a successor in mind, or a friend that you think to write your vision, that's great. Or you'll end up having someone like the Wheel of Time, who's like, yeah, there's one book left. I physically can't do this, so I'm gonna go ahead and break this out into like 4 more books. It's just like, all right, well, they did it more or less justice, but at the same time, that is nowhere near probably what the original creator wanted. So, all right. Well, that's I'm sorry, what was the name of that last one again?
Tales of Demons and Gods.
Tales of Demons and Gods. Okay. So the super long epic, that by the time you actually finish reading it, maybe you'd be lucky that they release new chapters. Okay.
So you have plenty of time. Like I've reread it like twice, so
wow.
it's
that's hardcore, yo. That's
something
else.
That's something it was.
Well, that says something for sure, right? All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great recommendation. And then you've been watching anything?
No, like I've just been like busy like reading, and that's about it. That's where all my free time has been going, just rereading so I can get that tattoo.
I think you
Oh,
mentioned.
dude.
I think you mentioned to me that you were reading or you're watching The Executioner and Her Way of Life.
Oh, so that was so I've been watching that off and on just to like fill the little void of Executioner, of like everything that's coming up in the following like months, like Bleach and everything else.
Okay. Uh,
Go ahead. You guys can keep on going. I gotta be right.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Joe hasn't watched any of The Executioner. How many episodes are you into it? Or did you finish it?
I think I'm about like 8 out of what is it, 12, I think.
8 out of 12. Okay. I watched the first 3 and I kind of bounced off. I didn't think it was bad. I thought that was pretty good.
Mm.
But for some reason, I think I got more interested in Paripi Konming or Ya Boy Konming.
Mm.
And then I actually bounced off of that too. But it seemed pretty good. And it seemed interesting. Is it doing anything in particular that you like about it?
I do like, just because the one thing that's been different is that like the isekai character isn't the
Main character?
well, it's still the main character
Oh
in
yeah.
a sense, but it's just, in a different sense. It's not, I don't know how to explain it really too bad, like without giving out too many spoilers about it.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of
It's kind of hard to like explain.
because like I don't think that I even really knew that, but but even watching through 3, I kind of
Mhm.
guessed that. But yeah, it seems like it has a lot of room to go, and to do something kind of interesting. The characters aren't bad in it, and it has like a weird sort of dichotomy of like what's got like people in the show are supposed to be adversarial to other people in the
Mm.
show, and yet they have to not be adversarial in order to accomplish their goal. But when it comes time, will they actually be able to? So
Mm.
it's very interesting in that aspect. So that's cool.
That's a great way to explain it without saying anything. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I never finished it. I hope to maybe one time, but it's just there's something about it that just stopped me. So I've only gotten past like episode 3 or 4, and like early on, I've already made a suspicion. During the train episode, I'm like, okay, I think this is how this thing is going to play out. I will be very upset if I was correct, because if I was able to predict something like that so early on, I would be let down, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the main reason why I want to finish this thing. I know it's already been all dubbed, and so it's just one of those things that like I'll have to squeeze it in my schedule just to, even if it's in the background, because I just need to know how this thing ends. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so it's a neat concept, especially when you get sick of all the isekais and you're like, yep, they all need to die. Uh,
Yeah. So it's been kind of like what I've been on. So like that's why I'm like giving it like around like a 6 out of 10, just because like it's doing something kind of new, but not really, because it still involves the isekai character. But
Yeah.
it's,
yeah.
it hasn't really been like captivating like some of the other ones that I've been like watching past,
Yeah.
and that's why
All
it's
right.
taking me so long to finish it.
All right. Well, I mean, like I said, it's fair enough, right?
Mhm.
But between all the other stuff you've been reading too, so I mean, it is like it kind of is what it is. All right. Well, Nick, what have you been watching, sir?
I watched Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
You sound like you loved it.
Yeah. Have you guys seen this?
Not at all.
No.
Okay, good. Then you're not gonna be able to fight back when I shit all over it.
You're
So
wrong, Nick.
this movie has great action, I guess, and the visuals are all really great. Um, and
Cool. We're done. Next, move on. All right.
so that's pretty much where, and then Benedict Cumberbatch, he does what he needs to do in this movie. He's not he definitely shows up and acts He's not asked to do a whole lot, but he is good with what he does. This the spoilers. I'm not really going to give too much in spoilers, but I'm just going to go ahead and say spoilers right now. So the adversary in this, if you didn't already know, is the Scarlet Witch. And and it takes place after the events of WandaVision. So you don't have to really know what happened there, but it certainly adds a lot to it and makes it good, or it makes it better at least. So everything in this is so cartoonish. It just feels so much like a cartoon.
All right, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Go.
Okay. The first Doctor Strange is really good because the early part of it has like nothing special or magical in it really. It's a slow beginning, and it's a very human story of a very arrogant man with the entire world at his fingertips. And he loses everything and has to rebuild that based on his based on like magic and gains more along the way. This movie doesn't really have anything like that, and all the characters that were in that first movie are pretty much made turned into cardboard pieces. The closest that it comes to it is Scarlet Witch, the actress whose name escapes me. Is it she's Olsen, Elizabeth Olsen, right? She for the most part, she's a very good actress, but they really make her look like just like a cartoon character a lot of the time. But toward the end, she does have a moment where she does, make her money, and it is a pretty good scene. So they at least know how to put that together. In the middle of this movie, they bring in a bunch of characters, a bunch of famous superhero characters, and then they kill them. They just have Scarlet Witch just like mow them down, and they can do it because it's an alternate universe. But it's just like, what are you doing? It's a really irritating scene, and it's just like, well, thanks for killing these characters. I don't care. It's just a stunt. It's just a bad stunt. So it's not horrible, but I was definitely very disappointed in it, considering that it's directed by Sam Raimi, which everyone says Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is like one of the best Spider-Mans or whatever. Well, he shit the bed on this one. Anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Watch it if you feel like it. Next.
All right. Yeah, I actually do want to see it just because I saw all the TV shows and stuff, everything leading up to that, and when that released, and then anything Marvel afterwards, like the Miss Marvel, and I think there was a different. Oh yeah, Moonlight or
Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Moon Knight. Yeah. Yeah, that one. Like I hadn't seen any of that stuff, so it was all right. I had heard that it wasn't that great. So yeah, but it seems like everything that matches up. All
And
right, for me, I've been watching some of the new anime that's been coming out lately. Once again, my stuff is going to be all dubbed. So if any of these things, there are more episodes subbed, and in one of these, there are multiple seasons already done because it's an older show, but they just finally getting dubbed now. So all right, first one off the bat, I'm going to go through these kind of quick because we're running out a little bit of time. So life with an ordinary guy who reincarnated into a total fantasy knockout. So essentially, it's an isekai. Two buddies, childhood friends. One's always been the successful pretty boy, and the other one's just been the sidekick friend. And essentially, they go out to a mixer, get drunk, at least the sidekick friend does. And during his drunken stupor, complains about how life sucks, and he wishes to be a beautiful blonde, and everyone can't resist him and everything like that. And then that's when a goddess isekais him to be the hero in her world. So as per his wish, she morphs him into a female blonde, character. And then the guys, both main characters, essentially just insult the goddess, not realizing who she is, to what extent. And out of her fit of rage, she curses them. So their job, she's like, you are stuck being cursed until you defeat the demon lord. And they currently believe the curse is essentially for them to like each other. So they and it's different, in that it gets a lot of points for being different in the isekai realm. It's pretty good fun comedy, and it's worth a shot. Right now, there's only a couple episodes in English, but I totally recommend giving it a look. There's like 4 episodes now, and yeah, it's one of my ones I look forward to on a weekly basis. The next one is going to be I'm quitting heroing, and essentially it's the guy who, the hero who defeats the demon lord, comes back to his home country, just to be looked at as a overpowered monster, and then is banished because everyone's afraid of him. So he, now, not knowing what to do with his life, he finds himself going back to the demon lord and saying, "Hey, I want to join your army." And he does a whole business proposition. I can raise your ranks, like, and do this and that. And of course, gets shot down, but is trying to work with the generals in the background to try to boost the army. And it's a cute little story. You seem to know a little bit about this, Robert.
Yeah, I just looked at it in passing. Like that's on my list too to watch. So like I am glad to hear more about it. And you said it
Yeah.
was good. So
No, it's been entertaining the entire time. It's like I said, I actually like the English voice acting in this one as well. They do a good job of making the characters, their voices fit their faces in a lot of ways. And I'm like, all right, that's good. Um, it's that one's there's only a handful of episodes out on that one too. Uh, let's see. I've been watching Overlord. I mentioned this before in the podcast too. Still really digging it. It's picking up some good steam, and it's one that I recommend. It's already a couple seasons in, and yeah, give that a
okay.
shot. I've
It's the
been
fourth
watching.
season, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see.
Then we're looking at Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. Uh, I'm just really liking this one. This is just different. Uh, guy gets um, guy gets picked by a magical animal and is told that he has to be a warrior to help protect the world from a giant, an evil entity who's going to smash the world with a mallet. It looks like a giant gavel, and essentially it's a biscuit hammer, biscuit being like a cookie or a cracker, and so
Okay.
it's supposed to break it up into little pieces, and it's just, I don't know, it's just different. And it's okay. It's one of those things that I'm not 100% sold on it, but at the same time, it has enough interest. And like I want to continue. I want to see it plays out because I think it has a potential of being pretty solid. Not like groundbreaking, but at the same time, you know. But I think it has to be like one of my, a really good contender for the year. Uh, all right, we got um, Parallel World Pharmacy. Uh, Yet another isekai. The dude dies in our world, overworks himself as a doctor, and he winds up in essentially a little more not medieval, but like colonial times, like England, and but this world has magic. So he's dealing with things like no one know, but because they have magic to do some healing, but a lot of their diagnosis and stuff is all primitive. They don't have microscopes. They don't understand how like bacteria or anything like that. So he's bringing his current knowledge, uh, but he's reincarnated as a child essentially. Um, and so his goal is to, his father happens to be our pharmacist for like the royal of that nation, and I've actually been reading this manga for years. Um, it's been entertaining. So I'm chances are I can guess where the season's going to end. So I'm like, all right, it's not going to get past where I'm reading already. So it's like, which is fine by me. I hate it. Like I kind of hate it when I've been reading something for years and then the anime just blows through what I've been reading, and then it goes into the future, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm done reading this thing for now because it took me forever to get to this point. You blew it by within a season, and now I don't know how long it's going to take for the manga to pass the anime now.
Yeah.
So when that happens, I usually will watch the anime because I'm like, okay, I want to know where this goes, and if it's really good, then I'll keep up with it. But most of the time, I'm like, yeah, I've good. You've gotten that out of my system now. uh, but yeah, Parallel World Pharmacy. It's it's a slightly different take on an isekai, mostly because it has the medical side of it. They deal with stuff like tuberculosis and things like that. So it's interesting. Uh, Now, the one that I alluded to earlier that has been going on for a long time, in the Japanese subbed is now finally getting dubbed is Natsume's Book of Friend,
Mm.
and so this is essentially I don't know if you necessarily call it slice of life, but a lot of people who like Mushishi,
Mm.
will like this. So Mushishi is a really pretty, um, anime slash manga. That one is, I don't know how you say it. It's, every episode's slightly different. So there's not an overarching story in that, but it has to do with a lot of, yokai or, mushi being bugs, but like these, like, he's a he walks the land. This guy is a pharmacist or whatever. He and cures what ails, like cures people of whatever ailment they have. So it's a really weird but really amazing uh anime it's just very different. That's all I can say is so Mushishi is like top tier for me. But it's nothing like you expect. It's not like it's action driven. It's just a kind of it's there. I don't know. There's no simple way to put it. You watch episode 1 and maybe episode 2 and you're like you already know what you're gonna get. And if it jives with you, you just continue watching more of the same. But if it doesn't, then you just bow out. Um, so like I said, I know a lot of people who like that end up liking Natsume's Book of Friends. And what it is it's a boy who's always been able to see yokai, and he learns that his grandmother had the ability as well, and apparently she just kicked the crap out of all these yokai and got them to confess their real names, and then she got them in a essentially a ledger, and by having that, she then has she has control over them, um, and so now the yokai don't realize they don't really differentiate between people. They just know like sense, so they
Mm.
think a lot of them think, oh yeah, she's still alive, so now we're gonna get our names back. So they keep on hounding this kid who moved into the town, and he discovers that like um, I can give them back their names, and so he's trying to return all the people's names Grandma stole. Um, it's just a very chill. It's pretty chill
That
overall. It's
sounds really
just
cute.
yeah, it looks good. The art, it's funny. He has a partner, a yokai partner, who's essentially this cute little cat. This it's a Moneki Neko, but then he transforms into this giant, like wicked, Okami looking monster, yokai, which is, but the full grown look reminds you of that old paintbrush art style, something you'd see from a like almost a vanillaware game or something like that. Um, it's just really pretty, really lots of swirls, and it's just like it's this big monster, and so he's kind of acting as said bodyguard. Uh,
Oh,
yeah. I think I forget now. There's like 3 or 4 seasons that were released like years ago,
Oh wow.
and it was always on my roster of like, oh, you really should get around to watching this. And I'm like, yeah, I will, but it's just there were so many of the episodes that I'm like, I just don't have the time. And now that's finally getting double, I'm like, okay, this is prime. I am on this. So I'm sticking with this one. Uh, I just I just remember it being got a lot of good praise, so I'm just blindly going in on pure faith alone, and I'm liking it so far.
That's good.
Uh, yeah. One of the last ones I'll mention is Black Summoner. I've mentioned this before too. Yet another isekai. There's so many isekais. It's easier to count which ones aren't, I suppose, at this point. Um, but essentially, the dude gets isekai'd, and then he's like, um, when getting reincarnated, the goddess goes, it's like she's like, yeah, I'll give you new stats. Essentially, you're going into a JRPG world where you can level up and stuff like that. He's like, but for more points, skill points, we can wipe your memory. So he's like, do it. So he wiped his memory so he can get more points, and then he upped his stats, and so he turns out to be like he's a summoner, and it's just him leveling up and going through this new life. I've been reading this manga for a really long time too. I actually really like the manga art style because it looks janky and not somewhat similar to One Punch Man, not like dumbed down, but it's like he looks skinny, like really scrawny, and then later on in the series he becomes really like manic looking because he turns out to be like a combat junkie. They gave him like shark teeth. Like
Oh
he's
wow.
just like he's all about fighting. He's like it's really something else. They made him look way more pretty in the anime. Which I'm like, okay, whatever. Like they made some artistic choices for the anime, and I'm like, it is what it is.
Wider
But if they get the
audience.
storyline, it is no, it's mainstream appeal for sure. Um, but I'm still gonna watch this one because I really like this manga. There's no way that I mean the series this is gonna end way before where I am in the manga right now. Uh, but I like it. It's so like I like the manga enough that I will watch this purely on that alone. Um, so
Cool.
that's pretty much a nutshell, like a real quick rundown of what I've been watching of recently. And there's a few other things here and there. There's a couple PSAs probably out there. There's a stupid ass one called Girlfriend Girlfriend, and I watched episode 1 and I immediately got angry. Uh, dude had finally gets a high school girlfriend, or like his childhood friend finally accepts his confessions, and then some other rando girl confesses to him, and he's like, I respect you for all you've done. Like, she works hard to look good, and like I feel bad turning you down, so why don't we ask my girlfriend if it's okay I date you both. And I'm like, oh, it just hurts my brain. uh
Okay.
it's like 4 levels of stupid. So yeah,
One of
and
those
there's
things.
a couple other interesting ones out there. Laid Back Camp is finally getting dubbed. I know some friends who really liked. It's I think it's Yuru Camp is the Japanese title, and they really like that. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give that a shot because they liked it enough, and I know some of them have like the light novels. It's just literally a slice of life, people going camping and the things they do, like here's how so it's really chill.
That's pretty cool.
uh
That sounds
yeah,
pretty cool.
so Laid Back Camp, if you want something, just a simple chill vibe kind of thing, go for it. um the Great Jaha Will Not Be Defeated is a cute little comedy. Evil demon general uh essentially gets her butt kicked, and winds up in our world. But her magic power from a crystal has been shattered, and so she's essentially this little child, and then she can transform just for a little bit into a full-grown adult, where she works as a at a bar, a waitress at a bar to try to get and she's just living this poor lifestyle as she's trying to like, but she's like, I'll conquer all you humans, and it's like, yeah, it's a simple slice comedy. It's like, all right, um, it's kind of like a middle, but it's like, yeah, if you have some time to kill, that's fine too. And then what I'm curious about, the last one is Remake Our Life. I've seen this manga around for a while. I have not gotten around to reading it, and so I finally watched the first episode, and first episode was like an hour long. So
Wow.
I was yeah, right. I wasn't expecting that. And uh more or less the nutshell is a dude gets to go back to high school, and he chooses the other college option, is all I'll say. And so that's him reliving. I'm not sure anything else about it. So so far it seems okay. um yeah, so all right, those are it. Well, guys, anything else on your dockets?
I think that's it, man, for me.
Sweet.
That's it
All
for
right.
me.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Robert, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
didn't know if you wanted to plug anything in particular. I don't know if you have any social media things or that you'd like to do. No.
I
Uh,
think I got a GoFundMe somewhere on one of my pages.
Just give you money.
PayPal. I'm fine with that.
yeah. All
All
right.
right, we'll put that in the description, I guess.
Check
All
in the
right.
description below. Guys, just GoFundMe. Help me pay my way through life.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nick needs to work on that one for us.
Yeah, I do.
Get to that, buddy. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all for sticking with us this long. If you made it to the end, thank you. This has been episode 24 of Another Dead Pixel. We're recording on essentially Friday the 13th. Well, technically, it's Saturday the 13th now
Oh,
because we were,
I didn't
yeah.
realize that earlier. I feel dumb.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I realized that the moment I said it out loud. I'm like, no, dude, it was the 12th when we started this.
I was gonna say, it's like I
It
didn't
is
notice
now
that.
early AM on the 13th.
It's like
Um,
I would have recognized that. Anyway, yeah, it was early AM when I said that. So I just thought it was still Friday. Still Friday to me. So anyway,
all right, guys. Well, thanks again. We appreciate it, and until next time, y'all take it easy, man.
see you guys.
See you next time.